Welcome to the Toffee Blues, your source for all things Everton. This is our deadline day special live stream. I'm joined by Paul, Terry, and Cal. How are you all?
Yeah,
All right.
well,
It's
I'm hungry.
I'm miserable.
Well, I mean, I'd love to say let's talk about all the signings we've made, but that's not possible. So let's talk about at least the outgoings. Niels Nkunku today was announced that he's leaving to join Standard Liège. Your thoughts on this? I'll start with you, Paul, and then make my way around the little square I've got in front of me.
I believe it's just a loan deal, isn't it? There's no clause in there that they can buy him at the end of the season. So yeah, I suppose in that case, then it's fair enough. I mean, would you prefer it if he went to somewhere like the Championship or if he went to a better standard of league? Yeah, I would do, but at least if he goes to Standard Liège, then you'd think he's going to get minutes, and that's what Nkunku needs, because a lot of fans, from what we've seen of him, really rate the kid and think he could have a long-term future here. It's just he's not going to get any time on the pitch really ahead of Luca Dean unless Luca Dean gets injured, and even if Dean does get injured, we've got other options at left back, it seems. So I haven't got a problem with it. He was one of those players who we had in our squad that just needed to get out and play somewhere, and ideally you'd like it to be somewhere a bit of a higher level at Standard Liège, no disrespect to them, but at least it's something. So it's better he goes there than he just sits in the under-23s for another couple of months.
No worries. Terry, your thoughts on it?
Can see why do you think it's a good idea for the player. You know, he's going to go out, he's going to play regular games at a decent level. I think the Belgian league is better than it's better than going like to Scotland or somewhere like that. He's going to play, he's going to learn, but it's a bit strange that we've loaned out our only recognised reserve left back. We started the day worried about the right back position, but now it's the most covered of the two full back positions. Do you remember when we had one left back under Koeman in the dreaded 2017 season, and Baines got injured pretty quickly, and we struggled with Cuca Martina at left full back for ages. And we're one injury away from that scenario again, where the team's completely lopsided and got no natural left back. Now, I know people say, well, Godfrey deputised last season, and he could probably do that again, but I don't think that should be an emergency. That shouldn't be like an anticipated, planned for move. We shouldn't be looking to do that. That should be in a pinch, because he's our best centre back, and I want to be playing centre back. But yeah, they took a calculated risk that if Dean gets injured, they'll probably play Godfrey or change formation or whatever. I'm not counting that Delph will play there because he's never fit. He's an idiot anyway. So I think it's a silly move, but it's a calculated risk, and it might pay off. He might come back a better player, and we didn't miss him.
No worries. And finally, Cal.
All aboard the Fabian Delph train, boys. All aboard the Fabian Delph train. I cannot believe it. I mean, Godfrey's good cover at left back. He played well when he played there, but it's like Terry said, why would we want to play our best centre back out at left back? And then that instantly means, if we remember when we were playing four centre backs with Holgate, and literally they all just stood there. They all stood there, and it's not. That's what they were told to do. All you lads sit back, and basically he were making our fullbacks play as centre backs as well. So it was absolutely awful, and I think it will be Delph. And listen, if he can convince Delph to play and actually put some heart into it, then I won't complain. But that's a minor miracle in waiting. So I don't think so. So I don't think it's an intelligent move for the cover of the squad, but I do think it's an intelligent move for the development of Nkunku's career in the end. He wanted to go out and start. So in the end, I don't think it's the worst move, but I think we probably should have thought about this a little bit more before we did it.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it was when I was on with you and Paul the other day, Cal, I said the left back situation is just as bare as the right back. The only difference is we've got, a first teamer at left back, and I think people wanted that at right back as well. But now I'm a little bit concerned about both full back. I'm probably actually more left than right, because at least John Joe Kenny's, for all he is, he's a right back naturally. So at least you've got some natural cover. Whereas at the left back situation now, you're going to have to stick someone, probably, unless it's Fabian Delph, a right-footed person at left back. I remember when we did it with John Joe Kenny, and I didn't think it worked when we used to stick him at left back occasionally. But he's not our only outgoing. We also heard the news that Moise Keane's left. I don't think this is an awful deal when it was broken down, when I saw it broken down before. So again, Paul, what do you think about this one?
Good riddance to him. I mean, he never wants to be here, did he? For me, he never put anywhere near the amount of effort in that he should have. And it just seemed like it was players like that who seem like they're just a problem. It's probably best if they go back to their hometown club, whatever, or the club where they all started, because they're the only club that's going to show them the patience that they need. He didn't make any difference whilst he was here. He's not going to be missed, because even in the games where he came off the bench for us, he made absolutely no impact at all. So whatever you feel about the incoming that we've got, the striker, we'll go on to him in a minute. I'm not crazy about that deal, but I'm absolutely sure that he's going to make more of a difference than Moise Keane did when he was here. So no, I wish we would have got a permanent deal from PSG and maybe got a couple more million for him, but I suppose beggars can't be choosers. So yeah, see you later, lads. We won't miss you. He's got talent, but just was never going to cut it in the Premier League, most likely.
No problem. Terry?
Yeah, I really wanted Moise Keane to do well, because I thought he was a good player against us the first time, but just didn't work, did it? It's another Lookman, it's another Vlasic, just a player who's at the wrong club at the wrong time. He didn't fit Enter Boot. He didn't seem like he could play in the Premier League. He looked good when he was in Italy, he looked good when he was in France, looked terrible when he was in England. So I just think that getting him out the door was a piece of housekeeping that was going to happen regardless. We thought PSG, as Paul said, would buy him. Hasn't happened, and it's stunted the rest of our business earlier in the summer, and now we've got him out in a strange, unorthodox way, in which we've freed up a little bit of money, but it's too late now, and we haven't freed up a lot of money. So he's gone. We'll bring in Rondon to replace him, and yeah, it's the end of that. It file under gamble that didn't work, didn't lose much money on him in the end. Whatever, we move on.
And finally, Cal?
Marcel Brands is a miracle worker. I don't know how we've managed to, when everything adds up, get like 38 million for him. I don't know how. I do not know how he's done it, but he's managed to do it, and I'm not going to complain, because in the end, it's we all wish it could have been better, and I think we all saw the glimpses of potential that he had. And I mean, at PSG, we saw it completely, and I think we could have handled it a little bit better. Because now, according to our favourite man with all these sources, there's a McKennie has been offered to Burnley, apparently, which I don't believe at all. I think it's that same topic we were talking about yesterday, Connor. I think that man is speaking out of his arse once again. But yeah, it's just, I think we need, the problem with Moise Keane was, I think we've just come out, got rid of him, and then just, we've settled for mediocrity, haven't we? Listen, I like Solomon Rondon, and in the end he'll do what we want. We'll swing 500 crosses in a game and he'll get his head on them like we need him to do. But I think because we don't even get the money this season because of the obligation, because it's a 2-year, don't we? If it was a 1 year, I think we can spend the money this season, but because it's a 2-year obligation, it doesn't work like that with the FFP, I don't think. So it's a bit difficult. In the end, I think we got good money for him, and it's a failed experiment. He goes across 2 other players who've moved today. He joins the Vlasic's and Lookmans of the world of the young player experiments who just didn't work out. But I wish all the best for him, and I think he will do really well at Juventus. And this is just going to be a blip in his career, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same as you guys. I really did want it to work out for him. Was quite excited when we signed him. Thought we were going to get the next wonderkin. Thought he was going to be, sort of like shades of Lukaku. He'd go on to be our number 9, But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be. I think there were a number of reasons. Physicality, apparently attitude was an issue. But I'm going to, like Terry said, I'm going to put it under Vlasic and Admiral Lookman. I think he's going to be potentially a good player if he sorts himself out. But the timing's just not right for us and him. You have mentioned it a little bit, both of you. There is one really heavily rumoured one. We'll go on to the ones that fell through in a bit, but the one that looks like it still might go through is Solomon Rondon. If you'd offered me this a week ago, I was not happy, but I was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and I still am. But when we saw that Edouard was rumoured the other day, and we spoke about that, I got a little bit excited. Then when that fell through and it looks like it's Rondon again, I couldn't help but be just that little bit disappointed. But I do think he'll suit the style and he'll do the job that Benitez wants from him. But Paul, just let us know how you think Rondon's going to get on. Are you happy about it, or?
I'm a bit indifferent to it, to be honest. I mean, Rondon, I was a fan of him when he was in the Premier League. I mean, I know his goal return isn't anything special, but you've got to take into consideration he did spend 3 years at West Brom and then 1 year at Newcastle, and they are some pretty poor teams. So just because he's not scoring hatfuls of goals for them doesn't mean that he can't come in and play with better players and have more of an impact. I think that it's the mould of striker he is, it makes it easier to swallow. I mean, if he was a number 9 more in the Moise Kean mould, where he was a bit more of a runner and someone who has to slot the ball in the box, a fox in the box type striker, then people will be looking at this thinking, what exactly is he going to come in and do here? If he's going to be like Josh King, then, and he's only going to be playing 10, 15 minutes, if that, then he's not really going to have enough time to impact games, is he? Well, the fact that he's a big, strong unit that we're going to be firing crosses in and he's going to be looking to attack the ball, then you'd like to think that means that when he does get on the pitch, then he's going to have time to impact it and maybe go alongside Calvert-Lewin if needs be, if we just want to go for 4-4-2 for chase the game. So if he's on, I know they always say, well, it's not your money, why do you care? But if he's on a low wage, then I guess I've got no problem with it. If we've done these type of deals before in the past where we're giving players who are in their late 20s, early 30s contracts, and in the end, after 6 months, we don't need them anymore, and we're just desperate to get rid of them. That player's just happy to sit on his deal and wait for it to expire. So I'm hoping this isn't going to be another like Theo Walcott, Ashley Williams type buy. Just something that you think is going to be short term, but it'll be good in the short term, and then within a couple of months, then you look actually scratching your head thinking, what do we even bother going there for? We don't need him anymore now. So yeah, if it's a 2 year deal or less than that, and it's low money, then I guess it's no risk, is it?
No, that's fair enough. Terry, what are your thoughts on Rondon?
It's another scrappy player, isn't he? Another one of. Well, let me put it this way: Rafa Benitez spent his time out at Newcastle bemoaning the lack of quality he had to compete, and he signed 2 of his players from that Newcastle team for Everton. So, I mean, I get it. We can't have just Calvert-Lewin. We need an insurance player. You can't have no backup striker whatsoever. So if it's nobody or Rondon, I suppose it'll have to be Rondon. But it's it's not good, is it? It's like, the players we've signed. Yeah, if we have a really good season, we might finish 9th this year. It's our own fault. We were in this position because of our own poor decisions. But yeah, we're signing scrappy players, top and bottom of it. If they do well, that's a surprise because they cast offs, their rejects, they're from China, they're free agents. I'm not saying they can't do well. Gray's done well since he's come in, certainly, and I've been happy with Gray from the start, but the others, to be honest, if you'd have told us at the beginning of the summer that who you're going to bring in, well, we're going to lose Carlo and replace him with Benitez. Benitez will do well to start with, but he's going to bring in Townsend, Rondon, Gray, Begovic and Lonergan. You'd be like, great. We're going nowhere this season, are we? So, they could do well. I'm pretty sure Rondon will be more effective in this league than Moise Kean, but it doesn't mean he's a good player. It doesn't mean it's a good deal. It's, just getting a scruffy player, as I always say. And that's what he is, and that's what some of the other players we bought are as well.
Yeah, they are very scruffy, hard-working, not so much flair and quality type players. Cal, your thoughts on it?
It's just meh, isn't it? It is just like, Usually when I'm on stream, I like to go into detail and I like to tell you something, but it's meh. It's 500 crosses on his head. Hopefully he scores a few headers. It's not the end of the world. It's a backup striker. It's a veteran who can help us in attack. And you know what? He's not the best striker, but I guarantee he could probably teach Calvert-Lewin a thing or two. And that's not me disrespecting Calvert-Lewin. That's just, he's been in the game a long time. He'll know, even if he's not skilled enough himself, he'll know things that can help Calvert-Lewin in the future. He'll know things that can help maybe Richarlison in the future. It's an okay deal. I wouldn't complain about it because in the end, he's probably third string striker anyway. Like technically he's the backup striker, but I can imagine if Dom gets injured, Richarlison takes that number 9 role, and then we play Iwobi, Townsend, Gray, or James if he actually gets a chance. But I think maybe I would like us to sign someone. It's like someone in the comments here has put you can take Lingard. Honestly, I'd love it. I'd even just on loan for a season because you know what? We know he can score goals. We know he'll put his heart into it. And I think that's what we need for the season because I think we need to wait until we've got money, which should be next season. We should go back to probably wasting 150 million on crap again. But, we've got to deal with it this season. And I think as soon as we all heard the FFP stuff, we knew that Rondon on a year, it's just, it's a 1-year thing. It's kind of like Josh King, except if Josh King was actually given a chance. I just think it'll be that all over again, really.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You've mentioned James Rodriguez, and we will get on to the ones that we seem to have missed because there's a lot today that we seem to have missed. But James Rodriguez, I think he's just put that he's currently streaming right now, which is probably quite an entertaining stream. I imagine he's going to say a couple of things.
Not as entertaining as our stream, but yeah, I imagine he's saying something on there that's worth listening to.
I'm sure it'll get absolutely quoted to hell on Everton Twitter later. And I'm sure whatever he said,
I tell you what, he's very relaxed out, a player who the club are desperate to get out the door. If he's, instead of on the motorway to another club somewhere or going to the airport or sat in a room with his agents going over contracts, he's just relaxed and sitting and is he playing on Call of Duty?
He's got to get those duo wins. Maybe he's playing it with his agent.
Yeah. If he's on Twitch playing Call of Duty, then it doesn't seem like he's in any rush to go anywhere.
Biggest swerve of 2021 coming. He's going to be playing COD with Luis Diaz, and they're both going to announce they've switched clubs. It's going to be some like wrestling style swerve or something like that.
It'd be the worst announcement video ever. That, but it looks like he is probably going to stay because, like Paul said, a player who looks like he's on his way out doesn't sit in his house playing Call of Duty on Twitch. Are you happy that he's staying? And do you think him and Benitez are going to get on? Do you think he suits Benitez's system? I'm going to start with you, Paul.
Yes, I'm happy he's staying. No, he's not going to suit Benitez's system, and probably not if you're asking if him and Benitez are going to be able to kind of make peace. And it doesn't really matter, though. As long as he's here, then if we give him minutes on the pitch, then I believe he will go out there and give it his all. I don't think he's a player who just kind of hides or anything. He's not a player who we've had so many of, the likes of your Schneiderlins, the likes of your Ashley Williamses, your Delps, who they look like they're not even bothered when they're not put out there on the pitch. They look as if they'd rather be anywhere else. I don't think that's James Rodriguez's mentality. No matter what's going on behind the scenes or in his life, if he's on the pitch playing football, then he's a winner. So if we do play him, then I think he's going to give his all for the shirt. If he's going to be staying, then I think we've still got to find a way to get him in the team and get the most out of him, because he still is, pound for pound, our best player. I know he's going to have his problems with his fitness, and he's not going to suit the direct counter-attacking style of football that Benitez is implementing, but I'd still want to put James Rodriguez in a team over the likes of Andros Townsend or over the likes of Damari Gray or over the likes of Iwobi, even if it means having to compromise a little bit in the style of football you want to play. He's too good to just not use. So we have to find a way. Benitez has to find a way to get him in the side and have it not detract too much from what we're currently doing.
Not a problem. Terry, give me your thoughts on it.
I'm very happy. Very happy he's staying. Didn't want him to leave at all. I'd accepted that the club wanted him to leave, but they're going to have to going to have to sort themselves out now. The player he throws out and told not to attend games. Yeah, they're going to have to go back to him now and sort something out. Benitez said he's in our plans until August 31st. Well, here we are. And he's gone nowhere. He's your top earner. You're going to have to use him. And he's easily your best, most creative player. So, no point, looking like, oh, well, we can't sit at home for 4 months at least playing Call of Duty on Twitch. He's got to be used. And will be no worse off for using a player of his quality. You know what I mean? You stand by your decisions. You brought him to the club for a 2-year contract. You couldn't sell him in the end of the first year, so now he's yours for another year or another few months at least. And can't see anyone taking him in January either. But yeah, I'm very happy. I never wanted him to go at any point. I know it's become a popular sentiment now because everyone's like, "Oh well, he's not fit," based on nothing. He's got a bad attitude based on nothing. Sits at home playing Call of Duty. Well, how do you know all the others don't play Call of Duty when they go home? Just because they're not on Twitch. I don't like this anti-James sort of sentiment that's crept up. You can have your own opinion, but a lot of the shouts have just been stupid because they've been based on nothing. It's like, oh well, we can't play with him now because the way we're playing. We were playing fast attacking football to start of last season. He fit right in there, so I'd put him right back in the team. Obviously, with the caveat of you need to contribute defensively and all. That's not Carlo anymore. You need to do this. You need to do that, but it's still playing.
That's a fair point. And finally, Cal.
I think you have to play him if he doesn't leave, don't you? I think, personally, my caveat from leaving was if we brought Diaz in, because at first that was what Porto wanted. We'll give you Diaz if you give us James and some money. But, listen, I think he's a player as well that could easily not change the way he plays, but change kind of the place he plays. We could easily have him as our Jorginho, the guy who keeps the game ticking, plays the simple passes, and doesn't, if he doesn't want him to be caught out or something, he just does the simple things really well. Release the ball to the quick players on the wings up front. He's got a good cross. He's got an excellent set piece on him, doesn't he? So I don't understand why we wouldn't play him, even if we have to play him in, a role where he's constantly got runners around him, which, let's face it, if he played between Alan and Decore, he has two beasts next to him with massive work rates. Damari Gray's got a good work rate. Richarlison's got a good work rate. Townsend's even got a good work rate. Dom has. I don't think he should do the Carlo thing where he just walked around the pitch. I think it should be, come on, lad, at least do a bit of running, even if that means we have to sub him off at the 70th minute each game. I just think something might happen within like the last hour where we might manage to get rid of him because someone might panic buy James, or get James on a free and pay his wages. But I just think if he stays, you've got to play him. I think you just can't have him sat on the bench because he brings such an impact. Look at the Merseyside derby. Look at the early run in the season, the Brighton game specifically. What he can bring to the team when the team's flowing around him is ridiculous. So it's just, I think there are things he needs to improve on. And I think we all know that he's not a perfect player and that his work rate's not the best. And that sometimes he might think of Everton as a downgrade on his career. But in the end, that's life. That's something we've got to deal with. So if he's going to be here, we might as well play him.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't. There were bits I really liked him when we signed him, and I'm not fully behind this that he's not completely a defense. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's a box-to-box midfielder by any stance, but I don't think I think he can at moments. I've seen him put in a couple of tackles for us. I can't remember the game, but I remember seeing him slide tackle at one point last season, which
Miracle.
When you watch, the first cover of his game, people were making out like you'd never see him step anywhere over the offside, the halfway line. But I really like him. I think some of the stuff on Twitch, the not knowing who your team are playing is very poor. But if you're going to have that type of quality player, you can't just have him sitting on the bench or sitting at home. I'm with you guys where if he's staying, he's got to be playing because it just seems daft to be paying his wages, that quality of a player, and he's sitting there, talking to John Joe Kenny on the bench. So I'm all for playing him. We'll get on to a couple of the players that were linked with today that don't look like they're going to happen. There's still 2 hours, I think it is, left of the window, so anything can happen. we'll start with Diaz. Obviously, if anyone follows, which I'm pretty sure everyone in football follows Fabrizio Romano, especially during the transfer window. At one point today, it looked like it wasn't going to happen. Then he said it might happen. Then he said it wouldn't. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster with the Diaz transfer. Is it a player that you think this is one that we look back at like, I really should have pushed for him, we've missed out? Or, just let me know your thoughts on the whole Diaz saga. Again, Paul, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the case. A really good player there who everyone kind of set their heart on, even though we didn't. I imagine most Evertonians didn't know he was last week. But I think this is one of these deals where the club has known that it's not happening for at least 24 hours, and it's just been very slow trickling out type thing. So Fabrizio, I think he said the clubs were still talking. That was maybe about 7 o'clock, 7:30, and then by 8:30 he said no, the deal was done. So what's he been told? How the situation have changed in 1 hour? Do you know what I mean? I think the deal was off completely at least, by yesterday evening, probably even earlier than that. So I think the club, hopefully we're looking at other targets and we're trying to get someone else in, but I really hope that we go back for that Diaz at some point, whether it's going to be in January or next summer. It would really, really hurt if because we've not been asked about basically, and we've gone for him too late in the window, not left ourselves enough time to maybe get a negotiation going, because it looked like that Porto were happy to do business with us. They just couldn't agree on what we were going to pay them and how much of Rodriguez's wage we were going to cover for them. If someone else basically picks this up and goes and takes him and brings him to the Premier League and he does really well, then it's going to absolutely sting like hell, isn't it? Because I think this deal was very, very doable. We just haven't left ourselves enough time to get it done. We've left it too late in the day, and we probably just gave up because we couldn't convince Rodriguez to go there, or we couldn't convince Porto to cover enough of his money. It just seems like this deal was there to be done, and something very little has stopped it from happening.
Yeah, I agree. I hope we do go back for him at some point. Terry, what are your thoughts on the whole Diaz saga of the window?
Well, I don't know really what he's like as a player. He looks good, doesn't he, in his videos, his clips on YouTube, but I saw Billy Lettinov look like Messi in his one. It seemed like a player the club really wanted. It seemed like a good solution to the James Rodriguez situation. He would have got him out, which the club were desperate to do, for better or worse. And it would have been a player who would have come in and added strength. I thought it was a bit strange that we're bringing in a left midfielder. Sorry, I can just hear a microphone really loud.
That was my bad.
Yeah, I thought
plastic bag on the floor.
Sounded like
1 second.
I thought it was strange that they were after a left midfielder when we've got Damari Gray being playing there and Richarlison's. Unless Gray was going to go on to the right and he was going to come in, I couldn't see where he'd be starting, especially when he would be starting, considering the money he would have cost. But I don't know. Maybe the club will go back for him. It's not a case of, we need that player. It's a case of, once again, here we are, deadline day, scraping around, trying to sort a deal out. No time for anything to go wrong and resolve it. Same old. Seems like every single summer it's all getting done at the very last minute, and it's blew up in our faces yet again. So, poor management from Everton continuously, poor planning from Everton, just poor from Everton.
Yeah, it does seem to be a sort of running trend that we do all our business very, very late. And I think it's starting to come back to bite us in a big way. Cal, I think we spoke about Diaz in the last stream, and I think if I remember rightly, you were quite complimentary of him. Just give us your thoughts on the saga as well, mate.
I think, do you know what? Deep down, part of me knew this was going to happen. It's Everton, isn't it? I think deep down, all of us kind of thought we're going to find a way to ruin this that way. I can kind of understand not paying, what was it? They wanted 40 million euros. I can kind of understand not paying that, because I personally don't know if I'd pay 40 million for a guy who's had one good season in Portugal and a decent Copa America. Like, I think we don't trust international tournaments. So I think, But I also think we didn't have other options prepared. I think that's the big problem. We didn't go, right, they want too much for Diaz. Option 2, here we go. I think that's the one problem with Everton is we're so... It's like we have one option for every position, and if we don't get that one option, that's that position done with, move to the next one. I think it's a big problem with the club, and I think we just don't pay enough attention personally, and I don't think that's just Brands' fault. I think that's the scouting team's fault too. I think it's the entire scouting department's fault. And, you know, Brands might be a good, decent director of football, but when in the end, I think it just everything needs to be prepared in advance from now on, because clearly we might be one of the worst clubs at Europe when it comes to doing things on the fly. And I think this is another example of that.
Yeah,
sorry,
I mean,
I will mention. Sorry, but
No.
I will mention this. What do we think Marcel Brands has actually done this summer? Because the players we have brought in, Townsend, that was clearly a Benitez signing. Rondon is clearly again going to be another Benitez signing. What's Brands actually brought? What players has he gone out and got us this season? It doesn't look like anybody so far.
I mean, if he got us Damari Gray, we can't complain, can we? Because in the end, it looks like it could be back in the summer already. And that he has also got us a lot more than what we expected from Moise Keane. He's managed to get rid of Andre Gomez's wages. I think, listen, in the end, I don't think he's the best director of football. I don't think he is, personally. And, you know, I'm not, but at the same time, it's not just him. Like I said, it's the scouting team around him. It's all this. It's like, I think our fan base, I do it too, is very quick to jump on Brands and blame him for everything that goes wrong at the club when it's not Brands, it's the entire club. We've always been like this. And I think people forget that. And Gomez, has he not gone on loan to Benfica?
No.
Have we managed to
he's
ruin
not.
that as
Gomez
well?
hasn't gone anywhere, mate.
Oh,
He's not gone anywhere, mate.
I thought he went on loan to Benfica.
So, I mean, there's still so much deadwood at this club that we haven't managed to get out the door. John Joe Kenny's still here. Gomez is still here. Delph's still here. Delph is, I forgot to just say it. Delph's still here. Who else? There's others as well. There's just players who we just can't seem to convince anyone to take off us, when there's other clubs who are managing to move on worse players for not massive, when they're probably on decent money themselves. It just seems like Brands is hopeless at getting players out the door who we don't want.
Yeah, it's, you know, I thought it had happened.
How can you sell players if there's no money in the market, nobody wants them? It's you can blame him if you say, well, you gave Delph big wages, you gave Andre Gomez big wages. Fair enough, he shouldn't have done that. But I'm sorry, we can't. No one's buying shite at the minute. Like, we can't shift James Rodriguez, who's a good player, on big wages. We're not selling a shit one on big wages. It's just not going to happen. Who's going to take them?
Other clubs are managing to do it, though. Other clubs are managing to move out players who they don't want.
Who's moving out Edwards? Who's crap and gone?
Yeah, because Man United
Liverpool have moved on players. United are moving on players who they don't want.
Good. But Man United are getting rid of good, like Daniel James is Man United deadwood, who we wanted.
I don't know.
No, not necessarily Daniel James.
They're not moving out Deadwood. They're moving out players who play. Daniel James, and he went and he plays. It's not Phil Jones is still there. He's their equivalent.
Who left United?
I'm trying to think. Someone left United recently. Not Daniel James.
No one. I mean, you might think of one isolated maybe, but no one's buying shite. They're all buying young players or players who are cheap, and we're trying to get expensive players who are shite. I know. I don't believe Mass as not a but fucking hell. There's no one who can. How are you going to sell players like Delph and Gomez in this market? Because no one's got.
We're not managing to sell the likes of John Joe Kenny. We're not getting Ellis Sims, another loan sorted. We're not. It took us until today to get Niles and Kunku gone, when we probably needed to keep him around now.
Kenny?
He was one of them who we've not managed to get out the door. Yeah. There's got a lot of young players here who not even necessarily need to be sold. They just need to go somewhere else for a season to get some minutes under them, and we just don't find any loan deals for them. Braithwaite's another one.
Well, Sims is injured, so he can't be sold. He's going to be injured till October. He got injured before the League Cup final, the League One playoff final last year. And who else did you say?
John Joe Kenny. We haven't managed to move him on. That's all.
Well, if no one's after him, then what are you going to do? Like, I'm sure he's not on big wages, but if no one offers for him, it doesn't matter if you're amazing director of football. You can't make someone else want to buy them.
No, but other clubs are managing to move on their young players who they don't want. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it just seems like at times he can't agree a deal, or we can't manage to convince other teams to take players who would do a job for them, most probably. But we don't want them either.
We can't afford it.
If
in the end, we
if
haven't
they've
been able
got
to
ability, like if your level is Callum, if your level is the Championship, like John Joe Kenny's is, and no one in the Championship's got any money, then they're not going to buy him. No one with any money in a top league is going to go, yeah, I'll have John Joe Kenny. He's crap. No one's buying crap. If they've got any money, they're going to spend it on quality or they're not at all.
Yeah, but the Championship, you look at it in the end. I don't think a lot of Championship clubs are going to want to buy a right back who's just spent a few months getting, put on his arse by a bunch of Scottish plumbers while playing for, supposedly the biggest club in Scotland. Listen, I don't think John Joe Kenny's a bad player necessarily. I do think he's Championship level, but in the end, it's just the market, isn't it? If this was last season, if this was next season, we probably would have got rid of a lot of the deadwood. Probably would have been able to. But in the end, it's just the unfortunate situation we're in, and unless we can get some clubs to panic buy, which is still a possibility, there is a chance, for example, I'm just going to use the example that I fell for. There's an example, Benfica let's say Benfica need a midfielder. They can't get one. They go, we were talking to Everton for Andre Gomez. Give us Gomez on loan. We'll pay 50% of his wages. I think that's what we actually have to hope for. We have to hope for pure desperation, because in the end, we've done stupid things in the past. It has caught up to us at the worst time, because let's face it, if we could have spent 150 million this summer, look at the quality we could have brought in. Everyone was cheaper this summer, and that's the summer we got caught out. Think about it. Listen, Demarai Gray were good, but we could have had Leon Bailey. We could have had
Tagliafico is apparently meant to be
Tagliafico. I know exactly how much. 13 million euros. 13 million euros in football. That's basically like buying a Fredo bar now. It's just like I think it's just Everton's bad business in the past has caught up to us, and in the end, this season we have to unfortunately try find gems, which we may have found one in Gray, which in the end I do look at it as if we had money, why would we have ever signed Demarai Gray? So you look at it like that, but maybe next summer we have to get our hopes up, but it's a very difficult situation, and I think we might get one in. We might be able to get one big signing in, because if we can offer 30 million for Diaz, 30 million euros for Diaz, which got knocked back, then surely there's someone out there. Surely there's some. But at the same time, is this our club being narrow-minded, tunnel vision for Diaz and not having a backup prepared? So
why are we not going for another right back? Why have we left it this late in the day for a right back? We've had all summer to try and get this done, and we're waiting until the final week to make a bid for some kid up at Rangers and to try and get Ainsley Maitland-Niles out of Arsenal. We've had all summer to try and do this.
I think it's because of the Dumfries situation took so long.
Yeah, we wasted a month trying to get in when he was never coming. We did the same thing in 2019, chasing Zuma when it was never likely to happen, and we were left basically a centre back short. Done it again. Not learned a lesson. We've been chasing a player who was never likely to come and had no realistic alternatives to him. And then by the time we did identify an alternative, it was too late in the day to get a deal done.
That fits your point, Cal, that we have sort of like these one targets, but we don't have any backups, because I think the club were nailed on, thought they were going to get Dumfries, and then when that went south, sort of now you've had Buta being chucked around, you've had Patterson, Maitland-Niles now. I feel like, it's a bit panicky because the first target didn't quite go as we'd hoped. I mean, Rondon, we're all going to assume is going to happen, but if it doesn't, that makes it even bleaker this window.
If that doesn't happen, it's game over. We're not. We will panic and pay 30 million for a backup striker if we don't get Rondon. I guarantee it now. Because in the end, we're Everton Football Club with, let's be nice to the lads, shite scouting team, and then in the end, a director of football who, let's be nice to him, only seems to know Holland, which isn't a bad thing because there's a lot of talent in Holland, but when you can't get that talent, then it becomes a problem. And it's just, I think what Everton need to do for the future is we need to have a list, and I'm not even taking the piss here, of at least 10 to 15 players for every single position we want. Because then, you know what? He might be fifth option, but fifth option is a lot better than one option and then, oh shit, last second, let's offer 8 million for, no offense to Nathan Patterson, to the young lad, but I've never heard of him until this summer. Never heard of him, and that might be my fault, but never heard of him. We tried to get Denzel Dumfries, failed miserably. We tried, and he was the backup option to Max Aarons, who then we never went in for again. I've never even seen us go to Norwich and go, how much do you want? Because in the end,
we've not even. No, I don't think we've even bid for him, have we? Or
we were interested.
Announced we have a bid for him, but
we saw Dumfries. Because what we should have done is at the same time we were talking to Dumfries, we should have been talking to Aarons as well, and then been, oh, can't get him, right? Bring Aarons in, and maybe it would have been too much.
Or if they liked Patterson, they should have been talking to Patterson as well. I mean, Dumfries went to Inter Milan a fortnight ago, if not longer.
Because and because
you know what I mean?
In the end, if Aarons, they said we want £25 million for Aarons, we'd have been like, right, we can't afford that. We'd have come back today and been like, oh look, we can afford that now. Here you go, Norwich, here's you 25 million. And if we could be even cheeky, Aarons wanted 80k a week. To be honest with you, I don't care if he wanted 80k a week. I don't care. Because in the end, we're desperate for a right back. Go on, Terry.
Sorry, I think they really did. This is a problem in itself, but they really must have gone into this weekend thinking they'd get Maitland-Niles, and he would have been the right back. He would have been cover for left back. He would have been potential cover for centre midfield. They probably were absolutely dancing on their desks in the Lava building, thinking, we get this player who covers three positions. He's probably got the signal from him and his agent that he was keen to come. Clearly he was, because he put that thing on social media, and he argued with Arsenal to come because he really wanted to come. And then he's gone in to see Arteta today, who's clearly flagged him that he's going to play him. They just bought a right back today. So how the hell's Maitland-Niles going to play? He's not going to be playing in centre midfield for them. So I think they thought, we'll get Maitland-Niles and that will sort us right out. And I think it would have. But obviously,
until a bid's accepted, though, they shouldn't be thinking that, is what I'm saying. It sounds like they've jumped the gun completely.
I know. They've done Zuma again. Like, they basically said, we've got this player sorted. We just need it to come off. And then it's not come off and it's too late. And they're running around now, rumoured to be putting in loan offers for, Donny van der Beek and all kinds of, will be linked with anyone and everyone in the next 2 hours. And, it's panic buying or it's panic loaning. It's just ridiculous. We've done, I will say that about Brands. He does seem to go all in on one player until the very last minute and then gets his pants pulled down every time.
It doesn't learn. Done the exact same thing with Zuma in 2019, and it left us up. It left Marco Silva basically up shit's creek without a paddle. So major reason Marco Silva.
Well, he got lucky in that case because Keane and Mina played for half the season, and then Holgate had that purple patch, so he didn't really miss Zuma. That was a let-off. He should have learned not to do that again, and he's done it again. I know there's been plenty of targets, but he's gone into today with Maitland-Niles being his ace in the hole, and Maitland-Niles has done him dirty by changing his mind this afternoon after the chat with Arteta, who, by the way, forced his way out of Everton on a deadline day, and now when it's the other way round, has blocked up transfer for a player. Just a little arsehole.
He's got every right to do that, though. He's the Arsenal manager, and he never accepted any bid for him, as far as we know.
And apparently we offered a really low
I'm not
amount
saying he has to let Maitland-Niles go, but it's just like, it's funny how he wasn't very understanding when the boot was on the other foot. He was in Maitland-Niles' shoes when he was here, and I'm not saying he's obliged to do anything, but it's funny how he sees it differently now, isn't it, than how we saw it.
Yeah, but I think we've known for a long time that Arteta's an arrogant knobhead, isn't he? That's the nice way to put it. You know what I mean?
I thought the Maitland-Niles was going to be a loan, though. Surely, if you're Arteta, you see some sort of a positive in this.
We offered a 2-year loan. This is according to Sky when they talked about it. A 2-year loan with a really low option to buy. Apparently, we were trying to pull their pants down with the option to buy. So basically,
his contract runs out in 2023, doesn't it?
And so that 2-year loan would have took him to the end of his contract, which is why we were trying to offer low money, obviously. But
which is ridiculous. That's a ridiculous proposal.
might be some sort of way where we just it could be Iwobi all over again. We could go, do you know what, Arsenal? We could bend over, pull our pants down, and be like, there you go, lads. We'll pay the money you want again. You know what I mean? It's just, because I've just got, do you know what? Because I feel like there is going to be business. There's going to be Rondon, and I just feel like it's going to be one player that we stupidly overpay for again.
Well, I'm not entirely sure how we've got 30 odd million to throw at Diaz, and yet we're now talking about the fact that we're struggling for a right back. I don't know what the club's philosophy is on this one set of 30 million and who
we're trying to hustle. Yeah, we're trying to hustle for Nathan Patterson. We're offering 5 million, then we're offering 8 million, and Rangers are just saying it's not happening, not for those type of figures. Gerrard's even laughing about it, saying that it's a joke of a bid. So we've got money to be thrown around for Diaz, but we haven't got any serious money to be thrown around for right backs. It mind boggles.
Yeah, I don't understand it. It's like they've got a set, criteria that this money's going to be spent on. Because I imagine Dwight McNeil was never going to come cheap if we'd got him.
That might be the panic buy,
I don't think Burnley are going to sell him to us, in all honesty, not this late in the day.
Do you know what, though? If, for example, let's say we get desperate, we chuck everything we've got at Burnley. Do Burnley say no? Do Burnley look at us and go, do you know what? We've got your pants down here. We know we'll survive without Dwight McNeil until December and January. You're about to pay stupid money again, and we've caught you. It's something that we very much could do. Because for all we know, we do that, and then Burnley go, guess what? Cava won't chatting shit this time. We've just brought in Weston McKennie. You don't know. And in the end, it's Everton, isn't it? So it really won't surprise any of us if we have our pants completely pulled down within the next hour and a half.
I mean, I hope not, but history sort of indicates that could be the case. Well, obviously we've talked about Maitland-Niles a little bit, and Terry mentioned, the fact that he could easily have covered 3 roles, that I think we were all sort of agreeing needed a little bit of depth. Now, if you were the board, would you go in for Patterson now, or would you go and aim your sights back at that booter that we were linked with earlier on? I'll start with you, Paul.
I mean, I don't know much about either one of them, to be honest. I mean, if we've put 2 bids in for Patterson, then we must be keen on him. The first one was 5, which Gerrard laughed at, and the second one was apparently 8, which has been rejected as well. If you're bidding twice for a player, then you must be pretty determined to try and get him. It can't just be, oh, well, he's available and we've scouted him a couple of times. Let's just throw a cheeky bid in and see if it gets accepted. Buta, I mean, I'm not going to lie. What club does he even play for? Do you know what I mean? I'm being really honest. They're like, so if we get either one of those 2 players now, it will still feel like we're getting an alternative rather than what we wanted. And we can't have been scouting these fellas for months on end, because if we had done and we were absolutely sure they could come in and do a job for us, we'd have tried to do the business much sooner than we're trying to do it now, other than just panic buying on deadline day. So I want a right back, but if we get a right back now, I'm utterly convinced it'll just be a panic buy.
You know what's the worst part about it? This is the transfer window, right? That I've seen Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Antoine Griezmann, Romelu Lukaku, Sal Niguez, Sergio Ramos, all these players leave. And we're going to have spent a combined total of 1.7 million Great British pounds. It's the most Everton thing ever, isn't it? And listen, I'm not saying we should be signing Sergio Ramos. I'm not off my head. But it's just, you look at it and you just go, I'm not surprised anymore. Because in the end, listen, we might spend 50 million in January. We might. But in the end, where will we be in January? Will Digne be out with an ACL injury because he's the only left back? Has Seamus Coleman literally crumbled to dust because we're still trying to play him 90 minutes every game when he's literally, in football terms, almost in a wheelchair? You know what I mean? It's just ridiculous in the end. And I think I think the Toffee Blues put it in chat that Alan Myers has said that Rondon might be our only signing. We're not in the position where Rondon can be our only signing. You know what I mean? It's negligence from Everton once again, where we're not paying attention to the most important positions we need to upgrade. And they think, oh, well, you wanted wingers, didn't you? Here you go. And then they just sat there panicking, because that's what we do, and that's what we'll probably continue to do for the rest of this club's existence. So I think we've just got to deal with it. And, you know, maybe we keep jinxing it if we keep saying we're not going to sign anyone. But that's all we can hope for at this point.
No problem. Terry, what do you think we should do about the right back? Do you think we should? I mean, I've been hearing Patterson's in isolation, so that is a complete no-go. Can you see us just absolutely throwing whatever we've got left at Buta, who, by the way, plays for Antwerp, I think. I think that's the Belgian club. I got it confused with Anderlecht the other week. Yeah, could you see us throwing money at him in a panic, or?
No, and I don't want us to either, to be honest. Anyone you bring in now who's a new name or whatever, it's just a complete panic buy, and some of the problems we've got ourselves into at the minute is because of panic buying. So, no, just accept the mistakes you've made, or accept the reality of your situation if it's not a mistake this summer, and just cross everything and hope things don't go right on the injury front. I think what we need to basically do is just hope some young players, the likes of Jared Branthwaite is a good example, can do the business. And you may think, what do you mean, he's a centre-back? But the second either of our full-backs get an injury, and they have done recently, they got them last season, we're shifting centre-backs out to full-back. So if Coleman gets an injury, Holgate's our right-back. If Dean gets an injury, Godfrey's our left-back. If that happens, either one, or God forbid both, then Branthwaite is either the first centre-back on the bench or he's playing. And if he can do well, then we might cope. Like, that's the type of thing, like a player we didn't have last year comes in, young player's going to get his opportunity. Same at the wide areas. We're a couple of injuries away from using Anthony Gordon. If he's sticking around, he needs to step up. It's not ideal, but I don't want us to go out and panic buy now, because we're already in a bad financial position. The only thing I'd be fine with us doing now is getting loan players in. If a loan becomes available at the last second, then whatever. You're not financially tied to that, but not expecting it. So we've got the squad we've got. Everyone makes a big song and dance about how this manager gets the most from a little, and he does. I'm not anti Benitez at all. I'm anti buying Benitez's ex-Newcastle players. That's what I was anti, just for people that want to, it's on the records. But if this manager can get the most out of a little and make get every bit of juice out of the fruit, he needs to do it now this season more than ever, because he's got some quality players. He's got zero depth at Everton, so he needs to be creative in his tactics and his team selection, and make use of players he's not made use of so far, like James Rodriguez, because we can't afford to waste a resource like that.
No problem. I'm just going to quickly remind everyone who's watching, if you could please like the stream, we'd all really appreciate it. You put a smile on all four of our faces on quite a dismal day, so we'd really appreciate that. One that we saw before was Donny van der Beek, and obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said no to it. Do you think Donny van der Beek would have fitted? Do you think he'd have got games? Do you think he's a good sign? We would have been a good signing. Let's speak, say now Ollie said yeah. Do you think he'd have fit in? I'll start with you, Paul.
It would have been interesting. I'm going to have to go. I've got to shoot out.
Okay, no worries. No worries. Okay. Well, cheers for joining us, Terry. It's been a pleasure.
All right, see you guys. Hopefully there's some good news later, but let's not hold our breath today. All right, see you later.
See you.
Speaking of Donny van der Beek, it would have been interesting. I mean, barely seen him in English football, have we? We don't know whether he's a really good player who's been unlucky, or whether he's a really bad player and at this level, and Solskjaer's justified in not playing him. It would have just been a gamble, I think, because you get players who look the absolute business in the Dutch league, like Davy Klaassen, and they come up to the Premier League and they look like they're really, really struggling, and they've got no business playing at this level. So it would have been good. I mean, you like to think he would have came in and made more of an impact than the likes of Andre Gomez has managed to do over the last couple of years. But it wouldn't have shocked me at all if we'd have brought in Donny van der Beek, and we'd have seen exactly why Solskjaer just doesn't seem to rate him, because bringing in Dutch players who've only ever done it in the Dutch league, it can go one or two ways, can't it? They can either be absolutely great or they can look absolutely terrible. So, and you've got to remember, I don't think Solskjaer's just not playing that fella to rip his nose off to spite his face. He sees him every day in training. There must be something that he's not doing to impress the Man United manager. So, you just don't know, do you? Always Vinny O'Connor outside Finch Farm.
Please, just say something, man. Just say something. I'll go on to Van der Beek. I think it would have been a really good signing. But what we know now is his agents come out. I was reading a tweet while Terry was talking that he's just rejecting everything. He hasn't played him a minute this season. He's rejected offers from Italy, Germany, us, apparently. I honestly do think Ollie's been a bit spiteful. He just does seem like that sort of manager to me, where he lets his emotions. Obviously, he's a Man United fan, legend of the club. I think he just gets spiteful and he lets his emotions get in the way of things, in rational decisions. Because in the end, if you're not going to play Donny van der Beek, what is the negative of sending him to us? Because we're not rivals. You're going for league titles. We're going for 10th place. You know what I mean? There's a big difference. And in the end, he's not going to use him off the bench either. Because he keeps sticking with McTominay and Fred, I like McTominay, but Christ, man, it puts you to sleep, that midfield pairing. And it's mental to think about. And because it's like I said, I don't think anyone's coming in, and Paul can probably tell us now that he's just said, unlucky lads, Solomon Rondon, go to bed now, is probably what he said, but it's just not a good thing, isn't it?
No. I mean, a couple of people are mentioning here that Rondon is basically going to be the only done deal. A couple of people are mentioning Ellis Sims could have stepped up. Obviously, Terry mentioned that youth needs to step up, and Ellis Sims or Lewis Dobbin, who's had a really good pre-season. Do you think that is going to be the case for us this season if today carries on like it is, where we start looking at the youth and thinking, right, got to use them? Because this is one criticism that Everton have had over the past couple of years, is that we don't use some of this youth that are meant to be highly rated. You know, I'm thinking Kieran Dowell's a prime example. I remember when they did the under-21s. I can't remember what the tournament was called in France, where it was like him, Kenny, and Tom Davis, and they had the Everton flag over it. So do you think this could be a silver lining in all of this?
Hopefully, because as you said, we haven't seen much of any youth players at all the last couple of years. I mean, have we had any player other than John Joe Kenny and Tom Davis who stepped up out the under-23s over the last 5 years and made more than 10 first team appearances? I can't think of any.
Luckman was our academy, wasn't it?
No. Luckman was bought from Charlton and went straight into the first team. No, other players we've had in the under-23s. It seems like maybe they get the odd game, they make a debut, but they don't ever seem to go anywhere afterwards. I mean, Broadhead's played once or twice, hasn't he? Virginia was an under-23 player, but he only made his debut because we had a goalkeeping crisis, and he's on loan now. Josh Bowler was highly rated.
Yeah, Josh Bowler was really highly rated.
Yeah, Josh Bowler he never got near the first team, and there's been other ones. We had
half of them were at Blackpool.
Yeah, Ryan Ledson, Liam Walsh was another body. These players who everyone rates, who either don't get in the first team at all, or if they do, they play once or twice and we just discard them. So it doesn't seem like we've ever brought a player up from the under-23s since Kenny and Davis. We thought, right, we're going to actually stick with these. We're going to play them in more than just a handful of games. We're going to actually give them some good experience on the pitch and see what they can do, and not make our minds up on them until we've seen them play at least a dozen games.
No problem. Cal?
Yeah, I think the youth has to step up, really. I don't think we have a choice. I think it's... I personally don't think Dobbin's ready for this level yet. Don't think Cannon's ready either for this level yet. I think that's the problem, but I think with Rondon, we don't need to worry about the forwards. Kenny's a decent backup, and I think in the end he does his job as a backup. But I think the problem is we know Kenny's probably going to have an extended run of starts, which is the worry. As a backup, listen, John Joe Kenny's fine. But when Seamus Coleman's legs eventually go and he has to start eventually, that's when the problems start. Left back's going to have to be Godfrey, unless we've got a decent one out of the academy. But I don't know I know Kyle John, the right back's pretty good, but
yeah, he's highly rated.
Don't know if the left back's any good. I think, we've got Onyango, we've got a chance, but I think he's injured still. But we've got good midfielders. I think it's just the problem is we might give youth a chance, because the problem with Carlo was we'd have a bench full of academy players who wouldn't come on. I think with Rafa, if we have to do that, they will at least play. But I agree with the point that there hasn't really been Well, loan player that's stepped up, and not a loan, sorry, a youth player who's stepped up and really impressed, maybe not impressed enough maybe to get in the first team, because in the end we have been, until this year, big money spending, haven't we? So it has to be a pretty impressive youth player to come in when before we could have just spent 30 million on someone in their position. But I think it's just an endless circle with us, isn't it? It's the same mistakes on repeat over and over and over again. And so I just think, like, for example, Linky Sport, Kyle John has the highest percent of crosses converted for under-23s and third for under-23s nationally. It's pretty good. We've got Anthony Gordon, pretty good player. We've got Bramford, who I think is going to be a really good centre-back in the future. But I just think the problem comes in the starting positions, not with the bench, with the youth, with the depth. I think we needed a right-back. And listen, we might bring someone in on loan. We might be able to convince United to give us Dalot at loan or something, or we don't really know. But so basically what Everton are doing now is they're begging that an agent gets in touch with them, that in the last minute their players become available on loan and we can steal them. And we've done this before. We've done this before where we're desperate, relying on last-second deals, and it's gonna kick us in the arse. And I think when we get to December time and one of them's injured, then we're going to know when we lose 4 or 5 on the bounce because we've lost a key part of the team that we can't replace. And I think it's just, I don't know, to be honest. Maybe we're getting too pessimistic because we expected something today, but in the end, that's what Everton, isn't it? It's valid pessimism. It is valid pessimism in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of it. Like I said before, it's sort of like the whole window just drags you. Like you sort of get, last week I was like, Rondon, it's happening, it's fine, it's not that bad. Then we got linked with Edouard, and I was excited, and then that fell through, and it's back to Rondon. And I still stick by the point; it's not made me think he's going to be any less of an all right signing, but it has made me go, well, we could have had Edouard. It's almost like when you like see the game shows and they're like, oh, you won this, but this is what you could have won. Almost feels like this window is the entirety of this is what you could have had if you had a little bit more money, a little bit more of this and that. But instead you've got this, which looking at it that way is quite, it's quite depressing because like you said earlier, Cal, I think some of the players going in this window because clubs are looking to sell, some of them are going for quite cheap, cheaper than they would, 2 seasons ago. I tell you what, we will talk about this one just because I think it'll get a reaction.
I'll just have to nip off for 5 minutes, please. I'll leave my stream on, but I'll just be 5 minutes, okay?
No worries. Well, I might leave the one player then because it's a certain former player that I'm sure will get a rile out of both of you. But yeah, I mean, Kyle John.
There's a name in the chat that's quite interesting. The Toffee Blues have just put it in. Serge Aurier on a free if he terminates his contract. Listen, on a free, we're talking completely different there because I do think Aurier is good going forward. I think he's a bit air defensively, and I think a lot of our fans will be like, he injured Andre Gomez, even though we don't like Andre Gomez. But it's listen, for a free.
Well, it's Son.
What?
I blame Son for the Andre Gomez.
I think no, because what it looks like, if I remember right, Aurier pushes Gomez, I think, and then Son slides into him.
Oh yeah, but it's the intent from Son coming from behind that gets me.
Yeah, but in the end, if you're a right back, you shouldn't be, you shouldn't be pushing people from behind, should you? But in the end, I think that shows that he's a bit reckless. But listen, on a free for 2 on a really cheap deal for 2 years.
Beggars can't be choosers. Is the phrase that springs to mind. We can't be
going forward as well. He's good. Listen, defensively, he's a bit suspect, but he's good going forward. He is. Why
is he pushing through his
They've just
contract?
signed Emerson Royale, haven't they?
Where does that leave Doherty?
Doherty will be second choice, won't he? They'll have told Aurier you're not.
I don't know if I'd take him, but I can't see Spurs cancel. I think they'll try and sell him.
Maybe they'll be like, listen, we'll take anything from him at this point. Everton, 5 million, yeah, cool. And I think
this screams us buying him though. I think
he's a decent right back because for a short-term option, I think he'll do the job for a season. Let's put it simply, it could be. I'd rather have Aurier than Patterson.
I mean, I've not seen much of Patterson, so it's hard to put a statement on that. I hope the money's right in it because us
It'll be
paying
cheap.
15 million or something silly like that and big wages would be
If we
such
sign
a
Aurier,
classic
it'll be
thing.
5 million or less. I can guarantee that now. I know I'm talking about panic buys, but I think we know Aurier is a bit suspect defensively. And in the end, if we put Alan on that side to him, Godfrey on that side to him, really good defenders around him. So, and like I said, I do think he's really good going forward. I think that's one thing Aurier provides. It's just defensively, he's an accident waiting to happen, which obviously with us and the way we react to things, it's nightmare incoming, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's worth mentioning that Chris Bez has put here, Hop went for 2.5, Edouard 15. Why aren't we getting these?
Oh,
I wasn't convinced on Hop. Yeah, Hop went to, is it Mallorca he's gone?
For 2.5.
I wasn't convinced on Hop completely though. But Edouard, I'm devastated he's gone for 15 million. That's and he's young, you know. Edouard would be I don't know where he'd fit in our system when we've already got Calvert-Lewin, but he'd be a striker for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
We could always play him. We could play like 3 like inside forward sort of things, so where they're always cutting in, and then Edouard becomes the main number 9 when Calvert-Lewin's not playing. Then it gives us his chance to actually give Calvert-Lewin a chance to rest. But it's just, we are relying on a last-second save here, and
which could be Aurier. It could be Serge Aurier.
It might be after the deadline, because obviously if the anonymous journal, Sky Sports has heard from anonymous. If Cava said that, don't listen to it. If Cava said that, don't listen to it. I'm telling you right now. If he said it, do not listen to a word he's saying. 8 million for Matt Doherty. No, that's bad. I'm being genuine when I say that. No.
Would you not take Doherty?
Not for 8 million. I mean, listen, because in the end, it's them holding a price in front of us when we've got no money and going, but you could get Matt Doherty from Wolves. You really could. At least with Aurier, we know Aurier can go forward. We know he can. He's done that for Spurs. And listen, if Aurier's so bad, why? If Aurier's so bad, why is Doherty the one being benched for Aurier? It's not a good sign, is it? Especially if, maybe for less, 5 million or less, I'd do. And yeah, it's just that
maybe
wouldn't hurt as well. The one Wormy's put, and Guisa on loan to Napoli with a 9 million buy option.
Yeah, that's another one we missed. There have been, like, luckily for the lack of signings, there is a lot of potential we could have had to talk about. And Guisa rings a bell. Weston McKennie, I'd have liked for us. I don't think we're ever in the race, but I'd have liked for us to at least, try and put ourselves in the race. Because I think that's going to be a great. I think Burnley have done good.
Yeah, Chris Doherty plays for Tottenham now.
Yeah.
Doesn't play for Wolves anymore.
Yeah,
but he said Wolves signed about 8 players. I don't know if he's on about this season or last season. I think Hop's basically a poor man's version of DC. What is he? I don't remember Hop ever being a big targeting man striker.
No, he's completely different style of play, which is why I wasn't convinced about him. I'm almost certain that we will play the same way we always do, and Hop will be this. He's not small, but he's not a target man, and I feel like we'd play for a target man.
Yeah, but for 2.5 million, it's like someone coming over to you and saying, "Here, do you want to pay 20p for this chocolate bar?" You might not like it, but it might be the best chocolate bar you've ever eaten in your life. You know what I mean? Yeah. In the end, you're going to look at that 20p and go, even when we've got no money, 2.5 million is still nothing. Because I guarantee you, we'd still be able to sell him for a profit.
Well, you say that, but I thought that about Sandro Ramirez when we signed him.
No, yeah, but the difference is Sandro Ramirez.
I thought he was going to be sick.
Sandro Ramirez, I don't know why anyone thought he was going to be good. It's like,
if I'm going to be honest, mate, he got high rates from Barca, and he was absolutely unreal on FM. So
I was waiting for you to say career mode or something. I was waiting for it.
He was sick on FM. So
listen, going off on that logic, lads. If you want to get excited, if we're using FIFA logic, I just signed Mansu Fati on a pre-contract to Everton on my career mode. So get excited in 3 years' time, boys.
Not that, but Football Manager, I believe, because I remember there were the rumours that David Moyes was using it for scouting knowledge when he was at Everton.
Yeah, but
which I had mad respect.
Yeah, but they actually used to work with Moyes.
Yeah, well, I was going to say while we're on
about,
it is one of them. While we're on about Moise Keane, I think we're going to get some money for Nikolai Balazic.
40%, I think. I think we've got it about 7 million.
Do you know what? It's not bad. Him and Zuma, two players that former Everton, absolutely. I'm gonna say not so much Vlasic. Zuma was adored by the fans. Vlasic, I didn't think got much time to make much of an impact.
Vlasic, when he left, it was very what could have been. I don't think we were happy that he left, but I think we also thought this is better for his career. But yeah,
he wasn't going to get games.
Would Aurier be another Delph though? No, why would he be another Delph? I don't think Aurier would throw his toys out of the pram and refuse to play. I think Aurier, if he wants to rip his contract up at Spurs to play football,
I don't know. I was going to say the fact he's about to rip his contract up though makes me.
I don't know. Willian did it, and which I think, you idiot. Listen, mate, you might love football. You turned down 20 million Great British pounds, and listen, you'd be one of the best players in Championship next season, Matt. You'd be fine. But it's just, that one hurts as well, the Toffee Blues. I'm kind of stealing your job here, Connor, but it's Thierry Small would have been involved with us a lot this season. He would have, wouldn't he?
He would. I mean, Nkunku probably would have. I don't know why. I get Thierry Small wanted first team football. I don't know why we didn't just promise him a couple of games or try and get him out on loan or try and accommodate him to some aspect if we were always going to send Nkunku on loan. I don't think he thinks he's going to walk into any team and be a starter unless he drops 2 divisions down. He's not going to be a starter at Southampton, but they've clearly promised him he's a backup, and I don't know why we couldn't have done the same. It's not like our left back spots, we've got depth in every player. There's a world class left back. I think he could have well and truly got some game time, at least a League Cup game. He could have played against Huddersfield the other night.
Yeah, he could have. It's just, but I think the problem with Southampton, look at that Livramento. Chelsea player never got a chance. Well, now look at him. He's went to Southampton. He's doing bits, and I just know that's going to be small as well because Southampton, for a young player, it's a very how do I say this? It's a flattering system to play under. It makes you look in some circumstances a lot better than you might actually be because you're young, got a lot of energy, can do a lot of pressing. We know Small's rapid and can fly forward, and it's this situation where we've sat back, looked at it and gone, we'll wait. And to keep up the Aurier, a lot of clips of Mourinho arguing with Aurier because he's but that's Mourinho. If Mourinho's arguing with you about your attitude, take it with a pinch of salt. I think that's the situation. Listen, because in the end, I'm not saying he's going to come in and he's going to light the world on fire. But in the end, if you're paying 0 for him or less than £5 million, in the end, he's better. It's a good option to have besides Coleman because he probably won't start. He'll rotate with Coleman. So in the end, if someone goes to you, here we go. We've got Serge Aurier as a backup. It's not the end of the world. I don't think it's... And I mean, I know that's how bad it's got where we're having to say Serge Aurier is not the end of the world. But I think we've got to look at it and that's the situation we're in. And it's a bit of a crap situation, but we've got to deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, Paul, we're on about Serge Aurier.
He's been linked with leaving Spurs all window, hasn't he? But it looks like it's not happening now. Yeah.
Something about
Barcelona were interested, maybe.
Really?
Speaking of, right, we've got to.
His agent would have done well.
We've got to make fun of Coleman while we can. Are you ready for the Martin Braithwaite and Luke De Jong up front for Barcelona?
The same Luke De Jong who played for Newcastle and didn't score a goal.
And the same Martin Braithwaite who could barely score for Middlesbrough.
I mean, to be fair to De Jong, he's got quite a good record Sevilla. Didn't he score 2 in the Europa League final?
Yeah, he's been quite good at Sevilla. It's just funny to laugh at Ronald Koeman, isn't it?
You see what he done to that Umtiti?
Yeah,
that's classic Koeman, that isn't it? He's just a horrible, horrible man, isn't he? For anyone who doesn't know, I think the clip is on Twitter still. Umtiti is one of those high earners at Barcelona who are desperate
just to boo him, yeah.
Yeah, they're desperate to get rid of him to get his wages off the books, and he's digging his heels in, and he's got every right to do. He's turned around and said, "No, I'm going to stay here, and you're going to honour my contract."
You can't.
He sent him out to warm up in front of all the fans when he had no intention of bringing him onto the pitch. He just sent him out to run along the line, so he'd have to get close to the Barca fans and hear all the abuse they were throwing at him.
It is saying something when I hate Ronald Koeman more than Ancelotti. Like that's saying something. I cannot stand that man because it's not even just because of him as a manager. It's just a bit of a lot of words that I can't say on the internet because it'll get the channel and it'll get me in trouble.
Yeah, it'll be super defamation.
Inky says, well, what's happened with Coleman? So we'll say it again if you didn't know. So basically, he sent Samuel Umtiti to warm up. Umtiti's a high earner at Barcelona, wants to leave, doesn't want to leave the club because why would you want to leave when they're paying you stupid wages? That's their fault. So he sent him to warm up right in front of the Barcelona fans for the sole reason to chuck abuse at him, just for that reason. So yeah, that's basically the situation. It's just classic Ronald Koeman, really.
Basically, showing a fellow professional, no matter what your issues are with him, not even showing him the basic level of human respect, is it?
That's Ronald Koeman. Oh, I used to be a good centre back in my day, mate. We don't care. You're a fat old Dutchman now. You know what I mean? I don't care how good you were in your day. It just winds me up because, listen, I understand if the player is hard to deal with, then it's obviously the manager might not be the nicest to him. But sending a man out in front of how many tens of thousands of fans to have abuse hurled at him, and we know what football fans are like. Some of that will have been racist and he'll have heard it. He will have heard it. And so then that poor man has had to go out there and listen. For example, if we did that with, let's say, Iwobi and we'd have sold him, I'd have still been against it. Because I've been like, it's not fair to throw a guy under the bus like that because of a mistake your club made. You might not have been the manager at the time, Coleman, but in the end, you're in €1 billion worth of debt. That's your club's fault. Don't try to start scapegoating people like Umtiti because you couldn't re-sign Messi or you couldn't spend money this window. That's your fault. It's like us blaming everything on Andre Gomez.
Yeah.
Listen, we don't like that he earns that much, but in the end, we know it's not his fault.
Yeah, I mean, I do love the fact that he managed to, because of his treatment of Nias, he managed to turn a footballer who, let's be honest, shouldn't have probably been on our books quality-wise into a bit of a fan hero.
Yeah.
So that says all about the ability of Ronald Koeman.
When Nias scored against Bournemouth, I don't think I've ever seen a manager look as angry at his own player that basically saved his neck. Because we'd have lost that game, Koeman would have been sacked that weekend.
Yeah, I can't believe he's got the Barca job.
Must have been a bit of sweet for him.
I can't believe it. Like, listen, under his day, he was a world-class centre-back, and I think we all know that. But how, man? How are you the manager of Barcelona? That's like me going into work, punching my boss in the mouth, and then he goes and starts a new company. Or for example, I get the reputation of, I just chinned my boss. And let's say I'm working at a corner shop. Let's just say I'm working at a corner shop. I punch my boss in the face. And then Harrods go, you all right, lad? Do you want a job? It's just like, what?
He's basically their Solskjaer, isn't he? He's an ex-player who, if the fan base is behind, who they can just kind of put out there for the media, and the fans are not going to be reluctant to turn on him, aren't they, or make the situation ugly. So he's just someone who is a yes man for the board, and because of his status as a player, it's not going to get unsavoury. There's not going to be protests against the club. There's not going to be anything inside the stadium, no matter what is going on the pitch. They're not going to disrespect Koeman and the team, no matter how angry they are.
They will.
Their affection for him.
Yeah, most Barcelona fans now, mate, are about 12. Of course they will. You know what I mean? Even I say that, I got a Barcelona shirt here, so you know what I mean? They're a bloody hipster team to like now, aren't they? So it's So yeah, of course they will. But at the same time, though, Solskjaer's likable. There's nothing likable about Ronald Koeman.
No,
there isn't. The guy's just not a likable person. Do you know what he might be? In his private life, you might be a lovely man, Ronald. But in football, you seem like a prick, and it's just the easiest way to put it out in front of people, because it might not be his fault. He might be very passionate about the clubs he works for, and so he has a set group of, if you do this, I don't want you, and I've got no problem looking like that. But in the end, it's just stupid. And I mean, right? Let's move it for. Well, Lenny's put it there. You've done a lot better job than me there, Lenny. It's like getting sacked at Matthews for pissing in people's drinks and then getting a job in a fancy bar. It is. Oh, yeah. It's like me getting a job at cleaning an old lady's house, doing a fat one, on the middle of a carpet and then getting hired to clean Jeff Bezos' mansion. It's, you know what I mean? It's just like
I don't even think Koeman has got anyone who likes him in his private life. I mean, when he was here at Everton, he was only in the training ground 6 hours a week. Do you know what I mean? He was off playing golf, and I know from first-hand experience that what's our kit man Jimmy? Forget his surname.
Martin, isn't it?
Yeah, Jimmy Martin was not a fan of Koeman. I've heard that from the horse's mouth. He didn't like him. A lot of the Southampton staff, when he did Southampton for us, a lot of the Southampton staff came out of the woodwork saying that he was not nice to them behind the scenes. He basically got thrown out of Valencia, didn't he? Because all the players just refused to play under him. It wasn't like he fell out with a couple of people. He fell out with literally everybody at Valencia, and they chucked him out. So, as you said, he just seems like he's a very, very unlikable man. Just an arsehole in private.
It's just unnecessary as well, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
You're being gifted an opportunity to stay in the game you love. Let's face it, Southampton at the time was a decent job to get. Southampton at the time, getting that job, it was, look at all this talent we've got, this underrated talent that goes, look at this academy we've got. Then moving towards, well, listen, man, I understand our club's a bit of a joke. We all know that. But being told, here you go, here's a club that's won all these trophies. You've got all this money. All you have to do is show just respect on a public platform. Like, in the end, for example, if I hate Connor and Paul, I'm not going to come on a live stream and just start calling them, start throwing names out, am I? I might do that privately, which I don't, boys, but it's just like, on the public platform, when you're with these people, you've got to show the slightest bit of respect. And it's just quite annoying that someone like Ronald Koeman can get to the top of this business in football management by being an arsehole. Jose Mourinho, he's a bit of an arsehole when it comes to his moral, but at least the guy's got morals. Antonio Conte, well known for being a bit iffy, has got morals.
Yeah,
it's like Ronald Koeman's got no respect for anyone.
They've won stuff. Koeman's never won anything outside of Holland. I think he got that cup with Valencia, the Copa del Rey, which the players basically won by going rogue under him. And other than that, he's not won anything as a manager outside of Holland.
He's going to boost his CV at Barcelona. So it's just irritating, isn't it? It's just
Ronald Koeman.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's a way to cheer up deadline day. A big rant about Ronald Koeman because nothing's happening. We're having a rant about Ronald Koeman because nothing's happening. We're just waiting for the Rondon announcement where secretly Callum Hudson-Odoi stood behind him.
Well, I've heard from the Toffee Blues, from John, that Rondon has been announced on Sky. They're just waiting for an official announcement. I'm just going to have to remove around my house to continue this. So while I do that, I'm going to leave you to discuss Solomon Rondon.
Spoke about him a little bit. I mean, I'll just go back to Van der Beek. Callum, I don't know if you spoke about him while I was gone, but did you say it was his agent who kind of put out there that there was offers on the table and Solskjaer just said no?
It shouldn't take me long to find the tweet. Give me about 30 seconds because I know it was Fabrizio Romano. I'm pretty sure I reported it. So.
I've just seen a writer for The Athletic, Laurie somebody, I've lost the tweet now, but he's saying that there was no sort of formal offer for Van der Beek on the table, and United wouldn't have considered doing him anyway.
Clear interest, and that he's just gone, no, 2 more. That's what his agent said. So is that his agent lying through his teeth to
maybe, but
possibly, but at the same time,
that would surprise me. That though, if Solskjaer was basically going out of his way to spite Van der Beek like that, I mean, maybe something's happened behind the scenes, but we know Solskjaer didn't sign Van der Beek because he barely played him, and it was clear as day whenever he gets asked about him in an interview that he's just paying lip service. So yeah, he'll play a part over the course of the season. We know he's a really important player. There's no, I know how good Donny is. Donny's going to be in the team when I think it's right, and I know I can rely on Donny. There's none of that. It's just very overly formal, about it, as if they've just got a formal relationship. Like there's no sort of like personal warmth coming out of Solskjaer whenever he talks about Van der Beek. I'm just getting it here. Laurie Whitwell for The Athletic. No formal offers came in to take Donny Van der Beek on loan from Everton or elsewhere, nor was he made available Man United FC. So he's saying that, and obviously we're hearing the opposite of that from somebody connected to Van der Beek. So it's just a very strange one, that one, isn't it? Because as you said earlier on, like, what is the point of him even being at Manchester United? Because they don't play him. They don't seem like they're in any mood to loan him out. I mean, if they sold him now, they could probably get most of their money back for him. I don't know how much.
I don't think they'll get 40 million.
They could maybe get half that, surely, but it just feels like
that's the thing though. Is if he comes to us and has a belter of a season on loan, which is very possible because you know what I mean, helped run a Champions League semi-final push. The guy's clearly good at what he does, so it's just it's just bloody. I just don't know anymore. This is the point where we're just getting to. It's just this ridiculous point of we're just going in circles now. It's just that's what it's going to be for the next hour, boys. We're just going to be running in circles.
Just going to interrupt, guys. We do have Mike coming on now, so I'm just going to add him to the stream.
No problem.
Hi, all right,
Mike. Hi, lads. You okay?
Yeah,
not too bad. I don't know what the lads were discussing before I came back on. Mike, give us your thoughts on the transfer window so far, mate.
I think we expected a couple more in tonight, to be honest. The way things are looking, it's going to be one name over the line in Rondon, and that'll be a lot. I think prior to tonight, I think that it's been pretty solid within the construct, but not addressing the issues right back is probably the biggest crime of the whole window. I mean, I think the move for Diaz, although it was seemed quite quick to many. I think it was something which has gone on for the last couple of weeks. We've been in touch to try and get that deal done. So, but I think a lot of people sort of fell in love with the idea of getting him in, and that wasn't to be. But I think the right back issue should have been addressed, and maybe we threw all our eggs into one basket with Dumfries. The longer it went on, the more likely it was to fall through. Didn't happen for one reason or another. We then go in for Maitland-Niles, and obviously we saw that soap opera play out over the last couple of days, and that's not happened. And I don't know. I think we know we've got constraints. I think the Moise Kean deal going through late has probably hindered things as well, more than we would have liked, because there's now probably a little bit of money there to spend, plus the Vlasic money as well, which is also a bit of a bonus. And it's just come too late. I think we look at, are we stronger than when we entered when we started the transfer window? You'd argue, yeah, because we're certainly more balanced. But then you've got a disgruntled James Rodriguez sitting there at the moment doing nothing, who's got to be reintegrated into the group, and how's that going to impact as well? So I think all in all, I think it's underwhelming in a sense, but it's probably expected as well, and it won't be until probably next summer when we can really get our heads back into the game and really try to push on. But we are where we are, and we've just got to work with it and get through now to the maybe January, or if not, the next summer transfer window.
No problem. Well, we were talking about a couple of right backs. We were on about Serge Aurier, who's apparently ripped up his contract, or wants to rip up his contract, sorry. Cal's gave his opinions on Serge Aurier. I don't know if I fully heard Paul's opinion on him. So if we could get Paul's first, then go to you, Mike.
Serge Aurier, he's a bit of a crazy horse, isn't he? Or that's the perception I've got of him, is in the sense that he's very athletic, he's very quick, but he's always got a mad moment in, like a sending off or a stupid tackle, or he'll give the ball away at a crucial moment. I mean, I think Tottenham's the biggest criticism that Tottenham fans have got of him is he just doesn't seem to have any. He's similar to Michael Keane. He's got a mistake in his head all the time, and he'll cost you in a big game. So I've seen him get linked with Barcelona, and I was thinking, bloody hell, his agent's done well, if there's any truth in that. But why is it that he wants to rip up his deal with Tottenham? Is it because he's fell out with the manager, or?
I'm guessing Nuno would rather play Matt Doherty because of the Wolves links, and then they've just signed Emerson, haven't they? So I don't know if it's rip up his contract or go for really cheap, but it's just
he's not young, is he? Serge Aurier, is he? In his 28 now. Unless it was a loan deal, then I wouldn't want us to go there. We can't be buying a 28-year-old who he's got ability, but he's not the long-term solution, and he's not so good where you just think, you know what, forget his age, just get him in this team because he's worth 10 points easily. So at this point, I know we're pretty desperate for a right back. If he said to us, if Tottenham rang us up and said you can have Serge Aurier on loan, then as long as his wages weren't something stupid, then you'd think, okay, let's do what we did with Sidibé. Let's give him a year, see what he can do, and if he's any good, then hopefully we can get him on the cheap in the next summer. But I wouldn't be throwing any money at Serge Aurier in terms of bids or big contracts.
No problem. Mike, what are your thoughts on the Serge Aurier link?
Yeah, I've got to agree, Gary. I mean, it's, we don't want to be going down that particular road. I mean, we don't know what his wage demands would be like. But no, certainly not a name I'd want to throw into the mix. I think, the Maitland-Niles link and the talk over that was more accepting because of the fact of his age, and the kid just wants to play football. By all accounts, you'd think he'd come in with the right attitude. Whether a Serge Aurier character will come in with the same attitude, you just don't know. And I always question when players are in that kind of situation. The tear up the contract or what have you. I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. And it's not a name that you'd want. I think with the right back situation, we've said for the last sort of 2 or 3 years, it's got to be someone who comes in who can take over the mantle from Seamus Coleman. With the way things are looking at the moment, if Coleman gets injured, or age catches up with him a little bit more as the season goes on, you then call upon Mason Holgate or Ben Godfrey to go out there and play right back, which is not a bad thing. But I think you really need to have someone coming who's sort of 23, 24, who can then take over from Seamus Coleman at the top of a hat, really. And this kind of loan signing, are we that desperate? Would you rather see Aurier out there as opposed to a Godfrey or Holgate if needs be? Probably not, to be honest. So it's certainly a no from me at this late stage.
He's Ivorian as well, Serge Aurier. So even if we did bring him in, he's going to be gone for a month of the season at the African Cup of Nations, you'd think.
Yeah, so, but I think Coleman will be fine for a month, because I think in the end we are bringing Aurier in as competition for Coleman. So in the end, we've still got... He won't play nearly as much as Coleman unless, God forbid, Coleman does literally turn to dust at this point because of how much football we make him play at his age. But it's just... At this point, we're just praying for anything at this point. That's really what we are. Like, we're praying for just anything. So at least Aurier, because it's even... I'm seeing Spurs people now saying that he might rip up his contract. So Aurier on a free... Can't really complain about it because we're not paying anything.
I mean, my first choice for right back for a long time has been Max Aarons, and because Norwich came up, they were entitled to ask for a stupid money before they'd even consider selling him. But if we don't get a right back tonight and we don't address it in January, is everyone in agreement that Norwich are pretty likely to go back down?
Yeah.
Do you think it's worth us kind of forgoing the right back, or at least a long-term right back for this window? Let's maybe not get anyone, or just get a short-term stopgap, and then maybe go back for Max Aarons next summer.
I'd love Max Aarons. I'd love Max Aarons.
We could always get Maitland-Niles on from Arsenal when they go down, so it might not be the end of the world. So, but no, I would love Max Aarons, and I think we will be able to get him on. And maybe that's the plan. Maybe that's the plan.
Go back for him. Yeah.
Maybe bring in Aurier on a 1 year prove yourself deal. And then we can bring in Aarons, and then it might be, Coleman, you can finally retire now, mate. Or you can, because we're not selling him. We cannot sell that man. We have to give him the Baines treatment. He has to go straight into the coaching staff after he retires. Hopefully he's not as miserable as Baines looks at the coaching staff, because he doesn't look like a happy man. I've seen it. He doesn't look like a happy man. But it's just...
Yeah, if nothing happens, we don't get a loan, or we don't get some wonderful shiny right back who we've just kept under wraps until tonight, I can see us going back for Max Aarons next summer, because he's not. If Norwich go down, which is looking very likely, he's surely not going to go and have another season in the Championship unless Norwich stay up. Then this is probably got to be his last season down there.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, mate. Just on Max Aarons, and as good as a player as he is, I think we really need to be looking into other markets, because when we go in for players based in the Premier League and English players and what have you, we always are going to pay over the odds for them. And he's a good right back, of course he is, and he'd certainly could take over the mountain from Seamus Coleman. But there's other markets, whether it be the French markets, especially the German market, where we can go out there and pay, say, £8-10 million and get someone in the right age category. And even then, if it doesn't quite work out, you're still going to make a little bit of money on them, or at least get your money back on them in a couple of years' time. And that's what we just don't do well, really, at the moment, where we've really struggled to tap into those kind of markets. Making investments. And if it works out, you're making, say, 3-4 times your money. If it doesn't work out, you might make, say, a few million quid or get your money back, and then it's no big deal. And that's what we need to be looking at, as opposed to spending, say, 25-30 million pounds on a Max Aarons. That's what I think. But that's for the club to really get the backside into gear and sort out going forward, to be honest.
I agree with you 100%, mate. What we were talking earlier on, I think our scouts are just that crap that we don't know anything about these markets. We never seem to dip into them at all, and it's got to be something's wrong, whether it's brands or whether it's the scouts or whether it's whatever. But we don't ever seem to have a long look at the likes of players and playing in the Bundesliga or in Liga 1 or even Serie A. I can't remember last time we signed a player from Serie A. Maybe there's an obvious one I can't think of, but it seems like we get everyone from the Premier League, or we get everyone from somewhere further down, like the Championship, or a player who has played for a big Champions League club, like at Alan at Napoli or Rodriguez at Real Madrid. And we just kind of take players who are not wanted at clubs who are bigger than us, hoping that they can come here and revitalise their careers. It used to be something David Moyes was brilliant at, just getting these random players from random leagues and who've maybe lost the way and giving them a bit of polish and turning them into great players, like Arteta, like Pienaar, like arguably Billy Letinov. I know Billy Letinov didn't work out in the end, but we still made a good bit of money on him. We just don't seem to go into those markets anymore and get players who are knocking around in other leagues, somewhere around mid-table, but they're ready to step up to a bigger club and a bigger challenge. And rather than them going to a bigger club in their own league, they're coming to Everton.
Yeah, I'm fully in with what Mike said. I think there's plenty of leagues all around the world that we just don't tap into enough. We've got the Brazilian and Argentinian leagues on the other side of the world as well that we just don't tap into enough. I know obviously work permits are probably one of the biggest deals with that side of the globe, but it certainly does seem to be a bit more like, if you're not in the UK, we don't tend to look at you. The only other club I was going to say when Paul was naming them off was obviously Andre Gomes with Barcelona, which again falls into Paul's category, Champions League club. Andre Gomes probably wasn't going to get games for Barcelona, so he's come to us. One that I did want to ask you about before, just to see your reactions for it. Apparently Chelsea are trying their very best to sell Ross Barkley. I think I know the answer from the majority of you, but would you take Ross Barkley back at Everton? I'll start with you, Paul.
Taking the emotion out of it, no. It's still, because where would he fit in a Rafa Benitez system? I don't think we're going to be playing number 10, are we? That's what Barkley's going to be. It's the only place that you can ever put him in a team and expect him to produce. I mean, he's never been a number 8 at Everton or at Chelsea. He's not going to be able to go out wide, I don't think. I mean, I know he had that little spell for a bit under Koeman that final season when he played, I think it was it wide right off Lukaku, and he did quite well. But Ross Barkley, if he comes into Everton, he's got ability. Anyone who says that he's crap just doesn't pay enough attention. It's just coming into a counter-attacking side. I just don't see where he'd fit in, and I don't think Rafa Benitez would want to accommodate him. So the answer's no. I mean, I think Barkley will go and do a job for someone somewhere if they take him. I mean, he was linked with Burnley today, and I think he'd be a cracking addition for Burnley. But coming to Everton now, I just think under this manager and the style we're trying to change to, he just wouldn't fit.
No problem. Cal?
You know what? I'd take him back, but the price would have to be, I'm talking dirt cheap. I'm talking it's either free or like less than £1 million. That's it. If Chelsea want to give him to us for free, if they're that desperate to get rid of him, then I'd take it. But it has to be so cheap that even during this FFP thing, it doesn't impact our finances, because it's obvious that they're just trying to get his wages off the book. So in the end, if we were to take him, we should go, well, if you want to get rid of his wages, we don't want to pay for his wages. We don't want to pay any money then, because in the end, he won't. I don't think he'll be big wages anymore. I think this is his prove yourself moment, kind of like how Danny Drinkwater's had to go to Reading to have his prove yourself moment.
Damari Gray does.
Damari Gray does.
His prove your moment.
he's not going to do it if it's air cheap though. Barkley, you know, he's not. Do you know what I mean? If he does,
But
any club he does go to, he is going to be wanting. He's going to be wanting to be in the top 7 or 8 players.
it depends if he has a choice, though, doesn't it? If he wants to revive his career, he's got to take that risk, doesn't he? In the end,
He might not want to. A lot of players at that point aren't they? Where they're happy to just sit on the backside and get a wage.
And that's what I mean. If he's not willing to take that risk to revive his career, and for the club that he stabbed in the back to give him a chance again, he has to take a massive cut in his wages, and he has to be willing to work hard. If he doesn't, we don't want him anywhere near the club. It's simple as that.
Go on, Mike. Finally, Barkley.
There's no doubt. I mean, the kid had great ability, didn't he? You know, and you go back to the 13-14 season, and you know, linking up with Lukaku and like the Delafeu and players like that. He was fantastic. The problem with Ross Barkley is he's got all the ability in the world, but he hasn't got an athlete's mentality. So I'm when I say that, I mean that he had his head turned by things outside of football. So I think the nightlife and things like that, he likes all that side too much, and that's the problem. Unless you're going to be dedicated, you can be a fantastic footballer. Unless you dedicate yourself to the sport for, say, the 15 years that you're at the top level, you're never ever going to hit those heights, and that's been his problem. You know, the attitude I think is wrong, and if we do take emotion out of it, then you couldn't have him back. I think because even due to the fact that in Liverpool there's probably too many distractions for him, you're never ever going to get the Ross Barkley that we had in 2013-14 back anyway. Plus the fact he wouldn't fit into the system is another point. And then you want to throw into the mix the fact that he left on bad terms for many Evertonians. It just would not work in any way, shape or form. But he certainly needs to go somewhere if he wants to resurrect his career. He's gone from someone who was apparently the next Wayne Rooney when he was younger at the club to someone who now can't get a game and can't even get a loan anywhere. And it's a shame. But I think, unfortunately, the lad's only got himself to blame because of how he is off the field. So he's got to have a really real change of mentality to kickstart his career, to be honest. But it will be at Everton, in my opinion.
Just before we move on as well, you've got to throw into the fact that he's quite injury prone nowadays as well. He missed a couple of months last season for Villa, didn't he? He had that really bad injury, which basically stopped him from playing the first 3 months of the season that he left, because he left in the January, didn't he? He got that injury to his hamstring, I think, in the summer. And then by the time he was fit again, Chelsea came back and took him. And he's had a couple of injuries since he's been at Chelsea as well. And I think he had to have an operation at Aston Villa last season, and he was missing for about 7-8 weeks. So there's not enough upside to it. There's too many downsides, as we've all touched upon. He's probably not going to take the pay cuts that would be involved. He probably wouldn't fit into Benitez's system. He probably hasn't got the mentality to, as Mike said, if he did come back to Everton, get his head down and work hard, he'd be distracted. And his injury records over the last couple of years just isn't great. So what would we really be bringing him back for, other than just an emotional reunion? And we've had too many of them bringing players back, looking at the emotion of it rather than the actual practicality of what can they actually do for us on the pitch. So it's got to be a no, surely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see. From what I could hear, it was just Chelsea trying to get him somewhere, and apparently he was caught trying to make inroads up north. I mean, I would feel sorry for him if it wasn't Ross Barkley, but it sounds like they were sort of Peter O'Den winging him, where he was trying to go around every car park up north for a move. Inky's put here, we just it links to what we were talking about with the right back. Obviously, and with what Mike said about other markets, Spurs is a right back. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here, but Tommy Yuso, I'm going to pronounce it as a player we were at one point linked with, very little, but I do remember reporting it on the channel. Is this another prime example? Could this be another prime example if he goes on to do well for Tottenham of just us not looking at the other leagues? I know he was at Bologna for this year in the Serie A.
I'll go first because I know a bit about him. I think the problem is you don't know if he's a centre-back or a right-back. He's got a very modern centre-back skill set to him. And it's just, I think a lot of clubs were Spurs at first looking to bring him in as a centre-back. We were probably looking at right-back. Arsenal are looking at right-back. And so it's just the idea of they don't know his position, and I think that's, they should probably, for the price, do you really want to be spending 20 million on someone where you don't know what position they're going to be playing them? So I think that's the problem. Tomiyasu is really good, but at the same time, I think he eventually, when Eric Dyer and Sanchez start to have a stink of ops, or he's going to Arsenal, isn't he? Even easier, when Ben White, Pablo Mari, and all those start to have a stinker, he'll probably get moved to centre back, and that'll be when they finally give Maitland-Niles a chance. But yeah, I think his career is moving forward as a centre back. I just don't think he's not a very modern right back. They put it simply, I don't think going forward he's unreal. I think I think if we signed him, we would have signed him to play centre back, to be honest with you.
No problem. Centre back's a position some people did start touting that we needed covering as well. Just to interject with this, John and the Toffee Blues has put 2-year deal for Rondon. It's still not announced yet, but that seems to be the contract extension. Are you happy with the contract length? I'll start with you, Paul, and we'll move down.
Yeah, it can't be any longer than that, can it? Because would he take a 1-year deal? I don't know, maybe. It was great when we got Josh King to take that 6-month deal and then basically just show him the door. And there was nothing he could do about it. It was a bit arse on him because he didn't get any minutes. But Rondon, if he's here for by next summer, we'll know what his uses are. We'll see in it, and then we'll have a year left on his deal. So if someone comes in for him and offers him basically better than what he has here, which is just sitting on the bench for Everton, if another club in, I don't know, somewhere around comes in and says, right, you did well as an off the bench impact player in the Premier League for Everton, we'll offer you a 3-year deal to see out your career as a starter for us, then we can get a bit of money on him, can't we? It's what Chelsea did with Giroud. I think they offered him an 18-month deal, didn't they, when they signed him in the Januaries, when they only probably intended to use him originally for about 6 months. And then when he had 12 months left on his deal, they could either give him a new one or keep him around because he'd impressed them during the time he'd been there, or they could just move him on and make a bit of profit on it themselves. So, yeah, a 2-year deal sounds about right. So if he does well for us, we can hopefully keep him around longer or offer him around to another club and probably get him a bit of a profit. Or if he's no good, then he's not going to be. It's not like we're going to be stuck with him for pure years like we have been with Gomez and the likes of Sigurdsson and others.
Not a problem. Mike?
Yeah, I think obviously people will probably say 12 months might have been better, but I think we're bringing someone in. Well, we are someone who knows the Premier League, who's certainly built physically fit for the Premier League. He's someone, at the moment prior to us announcing his signing, there's no one in the side who can replicate what Dominic Calvert-Lewin does. I'm not saying, by the way, Rondon is that kind of level, but he's a big, strong, physical lad. He's good in the air. And he's a better fit into the system if we've got an injury to Calvert-Lewin than other players would be. So I think that if you give someone like that a 2-year deal, you probably know after 12 months, like Paul said, then you've got a chance. Then if he wants to move on or if people are interested, then you can make a little bit of money on him potentially. I see it. I don't really see it as much of a gamble, this signing. I think it's a pretty safe signing by the manager. He knows him. As I say, he's a decent deputy to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and I think it's a half decent deal. In like I said before, it's been a little bit of an underwhelming window, but I think it's a kind of signing that makes perfect sense. So I've got no issue with a 2-year deal, to be perfectly honest.
No problem. And before we just move on to Cal, because obviously we've all said about Rondon, do you think it's a clever buy in the fact that he's very much a similar type of player to Calvert-Lewin? Very much an aerial presence, and that looks to be the way to play. Do you think he's I'm not going to say like for like, but do you think he'd suit it better than if we got someone like Hop, who's apparently more of a running behind?
100%, yeah, 100%. I think we do. We know now how we set up, and we've got that balance on either wing. Obviously, the likes of Gray Towns and those kind of players are there to, goal players with pace, but put balls into the box for a target man almost, and a player to sniff out a goal inside sort of 6 to 12 yards really, which is what Calvert-Lewin is so good at. And Rondon is ideal for that situation. His scoring record, I think, in the Premier League is 1-3, which is not to be sniffed at. So I think it makes perfect sense, to be honest with you. It's totally the kind of signing that you'd expect the manager to make, given the current situation. They're taking a gamble maybe on an American kid coming from the German league. I think to bring someone in who knows the Premier League is an ideal situation. It's a low gamble transfer for me, and it does make perfect sense.
That's brilliant. Cal?
I think in the end, it's decent business, isn't it? In the end, I'm guessing it's a free. It'll be on cheap wages. And I said this, he's very possibly the third choice striker behind, if he wants to play with Richarlison as a number 9, if Calvert-Lewin gets injured. So it's very possible that is, a third choice, or even as a second choice, he gets the job. It's like Mike said, if he's scoring 1 in 3, he might not do that now, but in the end, he's going to provide a presence which people are going to have to stick to. Because if a centre-back leaves him open, we've seen that he knows how to use his head and score goals. So he might be an example of he might bring our wingers into the game. He might bring our attacking midfielder into the game. It might be something like that. In the end, it's decent business. And don't get me wrong, it's not the only business we wanted on the day. But it's still, I don't think that our lack of business in the day should cloud that this is a decent signing. And I think it's just, it's business that had to be done, especially with Calvert-Lewin's got a thigh strain and a broken toe right now. So there's very much a possibility that Rondon has to play against Burnley. So you never know. So I don't think there's any complaints to have about the business, really. And I think anyone complaining about it is just trying to look into the nitty-gritty and trying to complain pointlessly, to be honest.
Just touching on what you mentioned a minute ago, the fact that he's a big target man, he's a big, strong lad, I think will endear him to Everton fans, because that's what we like, isn't it? We like our big, strong centre forwards who are going to get up close to a defender and have a battle and run around and put a lot of energy into it and exerting themselves. If we'd have got a backup striker this window who was more in the sort of, as you said, running behind, the hop, then they're the type of strikers who Evertonians kind of lose patience with and turn into boo boys, aren't we? I mean, do you remember the likes of, I liked this lad personally. Do you remember Jermaine Beckford and people like that? I mean, he was not a big, traditional, strong centre forward. He was kind of just someone who looked to run to things and finish. Whereas all you've got to do, even if you're not great technically, look at the likes of Stracqualesi, look at the likes of Niasse. They got cheered just because they were strikers who were willing to run around and look like they were giving it all, and they were allowing to have scraps with the centre backs, and they were willing to get their heads on things what they had no right to even challenge for. So even if Rondon comes in and his goal return isn't great, I still think fans will appreciate him when he's on the pitch, purely because of the type of striker he is. He's going to be able to get rough and dirty. Like Andy Gray is the ultimate example for Everton, isn't he? His goal return isn't amazing when you actually look at his stats, but just the type of performer he was on the pitch, the fact that he was willing to go out there and battle and try and get his foot and his head to absolutely everything, means that he's absolutely beloved by Evertonians, and that's hopefully going to be the case with Rondon. So even if he's not scoring as many goals we'd like, the fact that he's actually out there battling will make fans actually get behind him and cheer him on the pitch. I can picture it right now. His first game at Goodison, he's going to go up for an header and he's going to be getting up close and battling with defenders. I can imagine everyone cheering for him and getting really behind him. Whereas if we sign someone who's going to be like a hop, but he's kind of just standing still and not moving around much, like the likes of Kone used to and players like that, it's very easy to just kind of go, oh, and he's crap him type thing and just not really get behind them at all.
Yeah, sort of to an extent as well is why I don't think Moyes Keane worked really as well. He's more of a sit there, wait for the ball to go in front of him, run onto it, whereas, Rondon's bit more of a physical presence. And I've heard a couple of people say he's a really nice guy. Obviously, like we watched him a bit at West Brom. I know he was involved with McCarthy when he accidentally kicked McCarthy for his leg break, and he was absolutely devastated. And I can remember him doing a lot of stuff afterwards in the media saying how devastated he was, and he genuinely did look devastated. But I've heard he's a really nice fella, which could also help endear him to Everton fans.
He's always smiling in the photos I see to him, so hopefully he'll be just a good addition to the dressing room, someone who's really upbeat and kind of fits in really well and gets the players around him. He raises their moods. Whereas you can imagine Moyes Keane, he has a sulk on in every single photo I ever saw for him, so he must have just been an absolute black cloud around the place.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, obviously we spoke about this, but obviously as you know, what were your thoughts on the Moise Keane deal? We've said that we think overall it's not awful. We'd have liked a bit more, but it's not the worst deal in the world.
Yeah, I think the figures that were being reported early on, or the back end of last week, I think there was a talk of £17 million, and obviously overall with €7 million over 2 years for the loan, and then obviously what's being reported on top of that, it could work out it was about 32 or 30 or €34 million overall, which for me, all in all, is not a bad deal for a lad who doesn't want to be here, unfortunately. Didn't quite work, well, hasn't worked out. Things struggled to really settle in. Didn't have the best time of it. Whether his attitude is spot on, it's highly doubtful, I think, for a variety of reasons. And it's been hard for a young kid, was he 19 when he come over, to really settle down in a new country, I think, and hit the ground running. So we can't really sort of begrudge that move. We've not lost out. We've gained a little bit, and ideally, if that deal happens 3 or 4 days earlier in the window, we probably would have been sitting here now with another winger or attacker on the books, definitely getting someone over the line. It's just been that delay in that deal, which is probably our stubbornness, which was to do with trying to get a permanent deal in the first place, which has probably slowed things down and cost us a little bit. But yeah, I'm not going to grumble over the deal. I think it's quite a decent price for someone who doesn't want to be here.
What was your overall thought of him? What did you think of him?
I think we can all look back at his time and be a bit highly disappointed, really, because he came in. He was linked to a variety of clubs, including Atletico Madrid, and he was highly sought after. And we all thought he was going to come in and set the world alight. It's not happened. There was times when he looked half decent, and you think he's got decent feet. He's quite quick. And other times when I just think he overcomplicated things, when he should have been releasing the ball to players making a run, and he just sort of ran with his head down and tried to do it all himself, and that was never really going to work. Now, whether or not he actually matures a little bit more as a footballer and kicks on in his career remains to be seen. I think being back at Juventus will help him. I think obviously a club that he knows and has known since he was young. That should help him. I just hope that, if there's an attitude issue there, which I think potentially there is, like Mancini obviously kicked them out of the Italian camp prior to the Euros, and I think there's a bit of an attitude issue there. I just hope he settles down, gets his head down, and makes a decent career for himself, because there's a player in there. Whether it's going to be he's going to be a top player remains to be seen, but it's certainly, looking back and hindsight obviously is a wonderful thing. It wasn't a great fit in the end of him coming across so young to the club, and obviously relationships soured, and managers left and things like that, and it just didn't work out. But best of luck to him. Hope he does well. But it just didn't quite work out with us for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, I thought it was a shame it didn't work out as well.
I think it's a lesson for the club, isn't it? That if we're going to buy a young player who is really nowhere close to the finished article, but has got lots of raw talent and is maybe not going to come in and be a starter in the first season or two, but we've got a long-term plan for them, we can't necessarily have that with a striker, because the fans are just not going to show the patience. If he was a centre-back or a full-back or a winger, then I think the fans would be a lot less demanding type. But the fact that he's a striker, and the fact that we're so used to our strikers being, as we touched on before, kind of full-blooded and determined and just eager to fight for the cause, no matter what. At Everton Football Club, we put a lot of emphasis on the number 9, didn't we? The striker to lead the line and to set the example. And if you're young kids in a new country who's maybe not, as you said, not settled in, or doesn't know your place in the team yet, or isn't getting the minutes that you thought you were going to get, it just seems like the fans are not going to be on your side and be rooting for you. If things go wrong very quick, then the fans are just very quick to just dismiss you as crap. Whereas I think if Godfrey would have come in and had a bit of a tricky time in his first season, fans would have thought, right, he's only young, he's a centre back, we've got depth in that position. we're not going to get on his back too much. Hopefully, it'll be a learning experience for him, and he's going to get better for it. Whereas it just seemed like most people, from what I saw in the season he was here, were just very quick to write him off and just dismiss him and not be very sympathetic. Now, he's not helped himself in the time since that. As we said, he's had a couple of things happen, where, like Mancini kicking him out of the Italy team, like that story about how he kept showing up late for meetings. Apparently, there was issues between him and Ancelotti as well. Ancelotti wasn't really impressed by his attitude, and Ancelotti, you'd think, would be a manager who's tailor-made to get the best out of him. He's an Italian. He's worked with a lot of young players before. He's brilliant at getting turning strikers into absolute world-class finishers. And even Ancelotti didn't have a lot of time for him. So I think in future, if we are going to buy a teenager or someone in the very early 20s who's very raw but talented, then we're going to have to be very careful that we only go for a player who's what I've just described. If he's in a certain area of the pitch, we go for a striker or a number 10. Fans are just going to, if the player can't produce the goods straight away, the fans are just not going to show the patience.
Yeah, I saw a couple of people mention about just going back to the Rondon thing. A couple of people have made a good point that not only is the money right, but it could be worse. We could have spent 27 odd million on the likes of Genk Tosin, who is still under contract at the club, if I'm not mistaken, but he's currently injured.
Genk Tosin, man.
I believe he's currently injured though, because he did go to Besiktas. Where ultimately, I think that's the best way we're going to get rid of him if we were looking
for about 45p in a Mars bar.
I don't would demand a little bit more than that. But
is he in his final year? We signed him in 2018, didn't we? How long was his deal? Was it 3.5? Was it 4.5?
3.5, I think. I think this is his final year. We're about to lose him on a free, I think.
No one's going to take him off us, are we? I mean, our best chance of. It seems like that one's snake bit, isn't it? We agreed a deal with Palace, didn't we? Where I think if there was certain conditions on it, but I think if they stayed up or he scored a certain amount of goals, they would basically be obliged to buy him. And then he started off quite well. I think he scored against City away.
Yeah, scored a header against City, I think.
Yeah, started off well at Palace, and then he got a horrific injury, and that was the end of that. Then we agreed this loan with Besiktas last January, where I think again there was an obligation to buy if he played a certain amount of games. And it looked like he was on the way to doing that because he's a hero, Besiktas. They wouldn't leave him on the bench, you'd think, and he'd done his other knee. So it just seems like fate is against us with that one. We will just have to do what we done with Balassi and just wait for this contract to expire and then kick him out that way. Because even with clubs that are willing to basically take him on loan and take a chance on him, just luck's gone against us.
Yeah, John's put here, Tosin is in his final year. He'll go back to Besiktas in January on loan again. I think that's probably the best thing for him.
That's all we can do. Get rid of his wages at least.
I don't even think we took a fee for him off Besiktas last time. I think we were just happy to send him out there and cover most of his wage under the agreement that if he played a certain amount of games, they would then buy him this summer. And I think he played 2 or 3 games and he got seriously injured again. We have to just bring him back.
I don't understand how you can pay almost 30 million for someone from the Turkish league. Who's ever been good from the Turkish league? I'm being genuine here.
Sam Allardyce didn't even know he was from the Turkish league. I mean, I'm looking at him on Sky Sports now. I've got my telly on mute, so I've got no idea what he's saying. No word of a lie. I heard him once on TalkSport genuinely say, we signed Cenk Tosun from Olympiacos. It's not even the same country, you ignorant get. Do you know what I mean? So he knew nothing about it. So we signed him on the assay for he was our third, I think at the time we signed him, he was our third most expensive signing ever. And we clearly never watched him once because we'd have gone no way near him. So you can never underestimate just how stupid people with positions of influence at football clubs can be.
Yeah, it's like you'd think before you got to sign a striker for £30 million, one thing that goes into your head is the league they're playing. Listen, if he's scoring 40 goals a season, then it's understandable. But what did he get? 20-something, which is good, and he was decent in the Champions League. But in the end, not every player is going to be Erling Haaland.
I don't know if this is true, but the story was that apparently Mashiri went and watched Monaco versus Besiktas in the Champions League. I was impressed by him. I don't know if that story's true, but that's basically the one that's gone around. Mashiri watched them play against Monaco in the Champions League because Mashiri lives in Monaco and goes to a lot of their games. He watched them and was impressed by him, and he recommended him to Steve Walsh, and Steve Walsh, being the idiot he is, said okay, and just spent the money, and Allardyce was happy to...
Didn't look at Monaco either. Just look. Oh, I bet, was that not the Monaco team with Mbappe and everything as well?
Yeah, around that time, yeah. It was the Monaco team when they had Falcao in it and Bakayoko. I think that year they won the French league, yeah.
Well, there's been some good news put in the comments. This is a quote from Fabrizio Romano. Everton, I don't see anything big happening. What a window, boys. No. Solomon Rondon.
Yeah.
On deadline day.
Well, I mean, I guess the positive is Mike obviously mentioned it. Do you think this is just going to be one of those where this season, possibly January, I can't see us, I think we're still going to be financially stuck with the rules, and I can't see us spending an awful lot. But do you think this is just a season where we're literally just going to have to accept there's non-movers and then we're going to go big next season?
It's a transition. It's a transitional season. We've been hit by FFP after bad season.
I know, but transitional seasons for the last 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. I can't remember the last time we weren't in a season that wasn't transitional. I think fans are just so fed up of it now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but if you keep saying it, eventually we'll be right. Eventually, if you just keep saying it, 1 year we'll be right.
You can understand why why a lot of managers didn't seem to want this job in the summer. As soon as we informed them that, yeah, this is what the situation is financially, we're not going to have any money to spend hardly at all. I wouldn't be surprised if Benitez was the only sort of big name manager who put his hand up saying, I definitely want it. You could see why that Gaultier, the fella who won the league with Lille, you could see why he'd have looked at it and thought, no, I don't want to go near that, thank you. You can understand why Conte probably laughed us out the room.
His players, like the fans of the team he manages, is trying to scrap with Dimitri Payet, and they're doing better than us right now. It's like...
They won that as well. Because Marseille didn't want to come out.
No, I mean, I don't blame him. Payet almost started World War III. Have you seen the video? It looks like they're all about to jump on the pitch. Vinny O'Connor, Everton are done for the day. Right, so this is where we try to find a way to spend 45 minutes talking about Solomon Rondon, boys. Let's do it.
No, I mean, Brands has got his good points and his bad points, but I'm sorry, there's no defending this. To not get it right back in this transfer window, it's gross negligence.
Even someone on
it really is.
Like, I'm sorry, there's got to be one player. I understand, right, that a scouting team, it's not good. It's the guys who look in the Championship and that, the guys who look in England are decent. They do a good job, but that's it. We've just got a bunch of lads who know about like the UK leagues, and then we have no European scouts. So we just we'll watch one game of a player and go, there you go. It's just, and Neil puts here that Rafa seems to be doing fine with what he's got. But the problem is, what happens when what he's got gets injured? What happens when last season happens again and we're stuck with 4 centre-backs at the back? And
thank God we've got Rafa who can get the most out of the least. I mean, if Damari Gray hadn't started as well as he has done, then we'd be looking at this window as a disaster. Quite frankly, just because Damari Gray's had a good start. If Damari Gray had not really pulled up any trees, we'd be looking at this thinking, what an absolute joke of a transfer window. We've got 3 players from Premier League who played in the Premier League recently, who their clubs didn't want them. I mean, Townsend wasn't offered a new deal by Palace. Begovic hasn't been a Premier League number 1 in quite a few years. Rondon, when he's coming in, he was let go by West Brom, wasn't he? They loaned him out to Newcastle because they didn't want him. Newcastle didn't pay the money to keep him permanently. They didn't want him. Who else? Damari Gray looked talented at Leicester, but Leicester were happy to just let him go to Germany, weren't they? They didn't want to keep him around and develop him any lot more. So the fact that a couple of these players have come in and actually putting a bit of effort in the first few games to try and impress people has basically saved the board and for Marcel Brands of the fans' wrath, because if these players have come in and just given 5, 6 out of 10 performances for their standard, then we'll be looking at this thinking, what an absolute joke of a transfer window. We've got players who can't really contribute anything.
I think the fixture list has blessed us as well.
That as well. Imagine we'd have played Chelsea away or Man United away. Or,
I'm not saying Damari Gray is going to fall off a cliff, but what I'm saying is this is a good confidence booster for those cheap players like we've brought in to play against not the lesser teams, but to play against lower Premier League teams. and then be given, a chance to hit form. So now we might Demarai Gray might go into the game against Man United, for example, on really good form and might have a good game against United because he's given himself the confidence. But if we would have had Liverpool, I think any top 7 team, it would have been. We would have lost, and the mood would have been right down.
Well, I was just wondering if we could get Mike's opinion on the. Obviously, Paul's mentioned Brands and the lack of right back. Do you feel like this could be a bit of a? I don't want to say a bit of an L because that's very internety talk. But do you think this could be a bit of a disadvantage? Do you think this is a bit of a failure on Brands' part to not get a right back?
I said earlier today, I think that you've got to look at how long we've been looking for right back to come in. It's been a number of years now, so I think that's the one. If we want to sort of break it down, so I'm not in the doom and gloom camp because I know the current situation, and we're losing out on things because of past mistakes. It's that simple, really. So we've got to accept it. We've got to get on with it. But I think not to get a right back in some way, shape, or form is disappointing. Because there's certainly right backs out there in a variety of leagues, in a variety of countries around Europe, around the world. So I think yeah, that is disappointing. I think we left ourselves a little bit short now at left back. If we're letting and Nkunku's gone to Liège, so there's another gap in the squad. So we're going to be asking players again, like we did last season, like Ben Godfrey and Mason Holgate, to put themselves either left or right back, which is not particularly ideal. Again, not the end of the world, but the right back situation's been an issue for a number of years. So that is certainly, I think, a cross in the box for Marcel Brands for this particular window, because it should have most definitely have been sorted out. And like I said, whether we wasted too much time on Dumfries, and we thought we could get that sorted prior to the Euros. He had a good Euros, and obviously then things change, and he want a bit more money, and agents want more money, and things like that. So that's what happens when we sort of drag our feet, I suppose, because I think he was quite keen on it. So when your prime target then doesn't come in, you're then obviously looking at, okay, who's next on the list, and it's gone on far too long now. So it's not particularly ideal. That will certainly go against them. Whether we can address that again in January, I think the beauty of the situation in terms of us not spending much of any money at all in this window is there will be, I think, a little bit in January. The concern is obviously prices are even more inflated in January when you've got gaps to fill, and obviously other teams know that. So there could be a chance in January, but I think next summer, like I said before, we should be in a better position. But I think this season is going to be a season of trying to sort of be stable. If we finish sort of top 8, I think with that squad, I think that'll be a really, really good work by the manager. The concern is injuries. If we start at what we had last season, then we're gonna fall short, and we could struggle. We could finish bottom half of the table, 11th, 12th quite easily. So a lot of things have got to go in our favour, I think, to sort of grab European football, that's for sure. But the right back issue is certainly something which will not go favourably in terms of Marcel Brands' work in this window.
No problem. Well, I will get you guys to rate the transfer window. I was trying to leave it till after the deadline, but I can't see in the next 13 minutes something happening that will change your ratings massively. So I'm going to start with you, Cal. Rate it out of, we'll be generous and say 5, because 10 I think could really be a bit brutal. Rate it out of 5 and tell me why.
Before we do that, Serge Aurier's left Tottenham.
Has he left Tottenham?
He's gone. Wait, I don't know if you can
Apparently,
see that.
apparently I saw about 15 minutes ago that he's in talks with a Middle Eastern club, so it looks like
Everton, man.
Yeah.
It looks like he's just after the payday. Yeah.
Which probably best we avoid that altogether.
5.
Yeah, and then give me your one positive, one negative. We've got to keep some positivity in.
2.5. 2.5 like stars out of 5, and all those 2.5 stars are Demarai Gray. Like maybe I'll give him 3 from Rondon because, Coleman's had a good start. And if we touch wood, Coleman actually manages to force out one more season. Maybe John Joe Kenny's a bit better than we thought. I think looking back at it, it might not be as bad as we think it is right now. But I think looking at it right now, you can't give it higher than a 3. I think, it's just, and a 3's being generous because of Damari Gray right now. At the end of the season, it might be a 1 because Damari Gray's touch wood again. Damari Gray's ACL decided to explode in December because we kept playing him and had no other. But it's just, I think we'll do okay because I think Rafa will do the best with what he's got, and I think we'll squeeze 8 for 9 because personally, I think we should finish above Arsenal unless they sack Arteta and bring someone decent in. Leeds look a bit more topsy-turvy than ever now. Leeds look like they might have been figured out a little bit, so it's just maybe we can finish above our competition that we thought we had. I think we're still behind West Ham, who look like they're going to be.
They've got Europa League, though. I mean, if they have a long run in the Europa League, that's going to hit them.
It depends if they're smart about it, though, and go, do you know what? Second team for the Europa League, or they only play the first team for the games that they consider a challenge. It depends. But I could see West Ham putting a lot of the priority into the Europa League because they're not going to get this choice often. But it's just, 4 years now without a new long-term right back. It's just, we've had multiple opportunities this window as well. Over years it's been understandable, but this year there's been so many choices. It's like, and we just watch them pass us by, and it's like, if we can offer 30 million euros for Diaz, which got rejected, why can't we sign a right back? Why can't we, Missouri or whatever his name is from Ajax? I don't think he's gone anywhere. Why couldn't, obviously Dumfries, we didn't have the money at the time, apparently, and his wages were stupid. Max Aarons, I think Max Aarons is a next season thing, no matter what, if we wanted him. Do you know what? If I searched, the list could go on and on. But I think it's just Zeki Celik still at Lille, yeah, and Lille are desperate to sell.
I thought he
was
was going to Madrid.
Do you know what's the thing is? Oh, has he gone?
I thought he was going to Atletico. I don't think he did, but he was heavily linked with it.
But here's the thing right now: they're so desperate for money. I guarantee you, if we went to Lille 2 hours ago and went, we'll pay his wages, 10 million option to buy, a little bit more than Atletico offered you to sweeten the deal, they'd have went, yep, cool, there you go, and we'd have a right back. But it's just a complete, I don't know, is it like he had a bad Euros, so the club's gone? But it's, Patrick Schick looked like one of the best strikers in Europe. It's just, I think it's the club tunnel vision. It's what we've spoke about this entire stream, and we've repeated. It's tunnel vision that they only have 1 or 2 targets, and they won't defer away from that. Because listen, I understand we've deferred away and took risks before, and it's bit us on the arse. But in the end, these players are not risks, because in the end, if Celik's not as good as we want him to be, then at the end he becomes the backup right back. If he's really good, he becomes the starter. I don't, you know what I mean? And it's just this, I just think we've put ourselves in a difficult situation if a serious injury happens. I think that we really have.
Go on, Paul, rate your window.
Out of 5, 2, and I think that's being generous. If Damari Gray hadn't had such a good start, I'd be tempted to give it a 1 or even a 0.5, because did we get the most important signing that we needed, a right back? No. Did we get a player who is going to automatically come into the starting 11 and make it better in Diaz? No. Did we get a striker who is going to provide good backup for Calvert-Lewin? You'd think so, but you can't say absolutely yes. We don't know what Rondon's going to come in. He could come in and be absolutely useless. He could come in and be really, really good. We've just got to hope, basically. He could be a lot of different things, couldn't he? The goalkeeping situation, I think Begovic is just as good as Olsen. So, we haven't really dropped off in quality there. Have we improved the midfield? Probably, but not by a massive amount. I mean, I think Damari Gray and Townsend are going to offer something over the course of the season, but they're probably not going to be starters for 30 plus games, are they? Either one of them. So for me, it's a 2. If it was out of 10, I'd give it a 3 or a 4. Marcel Brands now, if whether you want to blame him or not, I always rate transfer windows out of 10. When you're judging a director of football, that's his fourth summer transfer window now. The first one was pretty decent. He got us Mina, he got us Dine, he got us Gomez on a permanent, which everyone wanted at the time. Then the second transfer window, he got us Moise Keane, who hasn't worked. He got us Gabamin, who, due to really bad luck, just hasn't done anything for the club yet. I'd give that second transfer window about a 2, Fabian Delph as well. Third transfer window last year was his best one when we got Decore in, we got James Rodriguez in, we got rid of the likes of Sandro and Balassi. I'd give that one a 9. And for this one, we've had a decent one, a terrible one, a great one, pretty poor one again. And for me, it's not good enough. Two bad transfer windows out of 4. So a transfer windows is not good enough when you're the director of football at a club the size of Everton who want to kick on and get into the top 6. So going on the right back situation, as Callum was talking about, that lad we tried to get out of Rangers, we've apparently put 2 bids in for, and one was 5 million that got laughed at by Gerrard, and one was 8 million that has been rejected as well. If we're putting 2 bids in for a player like that, then we must have some serious interest in him. It wasn't like he's 4th or 5th down the list and we thought, you know what, let's just throw a cheeky bid in for him and see if we can get him and see if they accept it. We've clearly looked at him, you'd think, and decided, right, we really like him. Let's make a concerted effort to try and get him. And we've made 2 separate bids. And it sounds like we've run out of time to try and offer a third one because he was in isolation, wasn't he? So we couldn't get a medical sorted. But a bid for him a week ago, we probably would have had enough time to agree on a third bid and a fee. We'd have probably got that one over the line, you'd think. Or even Ainsley Maitland-Niles, we'd have gone in for him maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. There might have been time to convince Arsenal and Arteta to let him come. It just seems like we've left everything to the last minute. And I don't know why we've done it, because Dumfries, that deal went out the window about 3 weeks ago, if not longer. He's been in Inter Milan for a while now, and even before he was officially announced by Inter Milan, it seemed like Everton were really out the race for him. So I don't know what we've been doing for the last 2-3 weeks when it comes to getting the right back situation sorted. It seems like we missed out on Dumfries, and then we've just basically sat around scratching our arse for a fortnight at least. So this transfer window, I mean, hopefully it's, as Callum said, we'll look back on it in a year or so and think, you know what, it wasn't quite as bad as we all thought it was going to be, as it was at the time. We actually corrected a lot of things. We outbalanced the squads. We balanced the books as well because we didn't spend any money. But looking at the business we've done this summer, I'm not confident that we can get European football. I'm not. You can always cross your fingers and hope maybe Benitez will pull a rabbit out the hat. Maybe some players will have some really good runs of form and they'll get us up the table and we can stay there. But I'm not confident of getting European football now after this transfer window we've just had. For me, it's a 2 out of 5. It's not disastrous, but it's absolutely nowhere near good enough. And it reflects very badly on the people at the club who are in charge of the transfer business.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a brilliant one. Mike, how are you rating it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably sit with a 3. I think that, you know, the biggest issue and what people need to take into account, if you look at the market outside of, you know, the ones who spend money like it's goes to fashion, like the Man Cities and teams like that. There's been a lot of loan deals done, you know, with view to payments and things like that. It's been a difficult window for many teams because of the constraints placed upon sides due to COVID and things like that. And that's something which I think we need to sort of look at a little bit more deeply, because we knew it was going to be hard anyway. Put that into the mix, it made it even more difficult. I think we gambled massively last year because they wanted to give Ancelotti a decent amount of money to spend, bring in his own players, and, you know, by all accounts, he said, I get you European football with the players that get brought in. So, you know, 2 players, Alan and James, were certainly Ancelotti's. Decore was on the was you know, last couple of years he'd been linked to us, and obviously you got that one over the line. And Ben Godfrey, obviously, clearly Marcel Brands brought him into the club, and that European football didn't happen, and that killed us a little bit. And we have to take all those things into account, because whether, you know, people want to accept it or not, the back end of last season was really poor. We should have got European football. There's no excuse, because we were in a prime position for the majority of the season. You know, we sat second on Boxing Day. So there's no reason why we shouldn't have got European football last season with that squad. Now we look at the squad now compared to last season. those 4 players that were brought in last season are still there. James will now be reintegrated back into the squad. You'd hope and you'd think. I don't think that Benitez, he's got a player there sitting on 190 grand a week. He's not going to be, allowed just to not come into training or train with the 23s. He's going to be utilised. It's that simple. So we've got those 4 players still there. Are we more balanced? Yeah, I'd say we are. Townsend and Gray certainly bring that to the table. Anthony Gordon might get a bit of a run now. The manager seems to like him. He says he's impressed him. So you've got Gordon there as an option now. Iwobi started the season quite well under a new manager. Obviously, we've got to see if it continues. I think it's difficult because we've started the season pretty well in difficult circumstances. The managers come in under a bit of a cloud anyway because so many people were in love with Ancelotti when he went. It was a bit of a kick in the teeth, and a lot of people didn't see it coming. We then appointed an ex-Liverpool manager as well, just to really rub salt into the wounds. And he's come in under a bit of a dark cloud, and we started well. He needed to start well. I think we're more balanced. The only issue, as I say, the biggest issue is we are lacking cover in certain areas, and that's the biggest concern. Is if we do get 2, 3, 4 injuries, if we start losing, like to say, like a Richarlison, Damari Gray, say Allen again, a couple of the centre halves, it can happen, especially in these times with COVID, where you get an outbreak as we've had already, where we've had multiple players having to isolate. It massively hinders who is available and who can play, and that's the thing where we may sort of fall short. But it's not being the worst window in the world, and maybe this kind of window where we spend 1.7, 1.8 million pound in transfer fees, a bit of a throwback window, if you like, to the David Moyes era or the older Everton era, could be a blessing in disguise and could work in our favour with this manager. Remains to be seen. We just don't know. But I expect a couple of faces maybe to come in January as well to bulk the squad up a little bit. Maybe they'll go into the free market. Players who are still knocking around on the free. Maybe that's just a guess, but we'll see. I don't think it's as bad as people make out, but it's certainly not all issues have been addressed. The biggest one being the right back.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. I think the right back position to not been sorted out is one of the more alarming ones. I'm hoping come January, like you said, whether it's a free transfers or by January, I think we're allowed to actually offer players contracts on a Bosman as well, which I wouldn't be opposed to if we could get the right player on a Bosman. But I feel like for now it's just going to be January for us, and then reassess how the squad is there.
Mr. Rondon has officially been announced by the club.
Yes, I just watched a little bit of his video as well.
Free transfer, 2-year deal.
I think Callum Myers said an option to, or is it Paul Joyce? One of them's just said there's an option to extend it to 3 as well if the club want to.
They won't be. Surely we'll not be doing that. He'll be 34 by the time we get to that point. We're not going to be giving him another deal.
I don't want to sound negative.
Going on 34.
As you said, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I think he stays as long as the manager stays. I don't think if it wasn't to work out, say now at the end of the 2 years, I don't think a new manager comes in and probably says to Rondon, I'm going to offer you a 3rd year just for the hell of it. I think he's very much a bit like Ancelotti had his players, like James looked like he might go because Ancelotti's not. I think if Benitez left, Rondon would be one that we'd quickly try and get out with him.
Yeah, but even if Benitez is here in 3 seasons' time, I can't see Rondon being here past 2 years. He's 31, going on 32 now. He's not going to get his contract expired, surely, when he's 33, going on 34, no matter how much the manager likes him.
I hope not.
I can't believe it, man. I can't believe the only person we've signed, Solomon Rondon.
As you say, I'm watching video Connor now outside Goodison, but I can't imagine he's saying an awful lot. He's just announcing the Rondon deal. But Paul Joyce and that have already spoke about it on Twitter. So I mean, one, and I don't want to do this, but it seems to be quite a popular thing on Twitter as I'm scrolling through. One thing people are talking about is Marcel Brand. I think there's enough windows now to ask the question: Do you rate him? For me, I don't think he's that bad. I would prefer someone like Luis Campos, who's at Lille. I absolutely adore him.
I don't think he's at Lille anymore.
No, he's not. He left, but he would be my dream one if you could say pick. But I don't think Brands is awful. But how do you rate him?
He's all right. Like, people, I think, massively over-exaggerate how bad he is. I think it's massively over-exaggerated. I think it's the point is sometimes it's like getting a graze on your knee and acting like you've just been shot by a rifle with how much we can blame Brands for everything, to be honest. I don't think he's the best. I think he has a bad tendency for tunnel vision, but I think he's a lot better than a lot of director of footballs. If you look at a lot of other clubs in that, who have direct, like, I'm sorry, but not everyone can be. I forgot your first name. Edwards from Liverpool. Louis Campos.
Marcus Edwards. He's leaving anyway.
Yeah, like, don't get me wrong. Here's the thing: is I would replace Brands if we could get Louis Campos in, because the one thing Brands is really good at is he's quite a good negotiator. And people might go, well, no, because with this, and that. He is. We got somehow I added up 40 million for Moise Kean. I can't be bothered searching, but it's just he's blaming everything on Brands does not fix the window. Blaming everything on Rafa does not. It's the club as a collective. It's not just Brands. It's the club as a collective. And in the end, that's thrown us under the bus. And it's football fans. You've got to find someone to blame, don't you? And in the end, is he the best? No. If there was a better option to replace him, would I? Yeah. But I also don't think, unless we can get someone like Louis Campos, I don't think it's something we should be focused on blaming him too much. I just think it's because it's like Mike was talking about earlier, the situation we're in as well as really throwing us under the bus. If we would have even got into the Conference League, things might have been a little bit better. We might have brought in a right back, but it's just...
That's why I said the 4 windows, to be fair, because this one's a tough one.
Because in the end, it was him who picked out Ben Godfrey. In the end, imagine...
It was also when we gave a deal to Delft, though. So.
Yeah, but at the same time, imagine last season without Ben Godfrey. We actually would have been in a relegation race.
Imagine a season without Fabian Delph.
It would have been the exact same. I think that's the problem, but it's just... I don't think he's perfect, but I also don't think he deserves all the blame. He deserves some. He rightly deserves some blame. I'm not saying don't, but it's the ones who are going to direct everything to Marcel Brands. This entire window's his fault. You'd think he'd murdered the firstborn child or something. It's just... I think it can be massively over-exaggerated at times, but I can also... He deserves some of it. Definitely.
Paul?
Weighing up the 4 transfer windows, I touched on it before. For me, he's had one decent one really good one quite poor one, which is this summer, and one disastrous one, which was 2019. For me, he's mediocre. I mean, he's not terrible, but he's not great either. He's got his things he's good at, negotiating, as Callum touched on. He's got things he's quite poor at for me, and that's basically getting a list of targets, slowly working his way down. Seems like, as you said, he just fixates on one person, and no matter how unlikely it is that we're going to get that person, until it's physically impossible to get the deal, when that person's physically signed for someone else, he just won't give up on it. That's four transfer windows now. I mean, he's mediocre for me, and if you're mediocre, should that be good enough for you to be staying at Everton long term? Not for me. I mean, I wouldn't just sack him for the sake of sacking him, but I would definitely be looking around, see if we can get someone better than him. Like we would obviously do when Steve Walsh was here. We were looking around trying to replace Steve Walsh when Steve Walsh was working here. We as soon as we got Marcel Brands to agree to come, we told Steve Walsh to get up, pick his coat up and get off, didn't we? Which I think what we should be doing for Marcel Brands now. He's done well in some cases. There's been some signs that were really, really good, but for me, there's just been too many bad decisions now on things that have left bad taste in your mouth. I mean, that's 2 summer transfer windows now where we've not addressed the most important thing in the squad that needed addressing. 2019, we needed to get a centre-back and we didn't get one because we wasted our time going after Zuma when the deal was never likely. And this summer, we've needed a right-back and we haven't got a right-back because we wasted our time. going for Dumfries, who was never likely to happen, and we've left it too late to try and get a deal done for Ainsley Maitland-Niles or Patterson up at Rangers. So you can't have 2 transfer windows where you've essentially made a complete bollocks of it and still have people thinking you're this great director of football. I mean, he's not terrible. I wouldn't want to sack him and then just go back to the way we used to do it, where the manager has sole control of things and Kenwright maybe gets involved and Bashiri's obviously going to have his say. I'd still keep him here if there's no really obvious alternative, but I do think we should be making some low-key inquiries to other directors of football saying, would you be interested in coming in and taking the position at our club? Because for me, when you're going to have 4 transfer windows and 2 of them are really, really poor, then we shouldn't be planning for a long-term future. Yeah, you've made too many errors.
Can I play devil's advocate here? Right. So Steve Walsh, amazing at Leicester, one of the main reasons Leicester were able to win a Premier League title. Marcel Brand's done really good at PSG and PSV and, other clubs in Holland, I believe. Is it the scouting team that's the problem?
Shouldn't a director of football, though, shouldn't he have a say over who the scouting team are?
He should, but at the same time, it's not just him. It's not just him who's up to it. I don't know if we have a technical director as well. I'm guessing we do. They're usually quite involved in the staff. Is it stubbornness from us? Is it saying there's loads of stuff in this club. Are we not giving him a good enough budget to sack a scout and bring a new one in? Is it, because in the end, the guy can't do everything himself. The guy can't scout the players, negotiate with the players, sign the players, agree. He can't do everything himself. And in the end, I think the scouting team does play a part in it. Because in the end, if Steve Walsh was so good at Leicester and Marcel Brands has done brilliantly in other jobs, why is it that we seem to be the problem with both of them? Because in the end, right, Steve Walsh, I understand finding N'Golo Kante, finding Riyad Mahrez, finding Jamie Vardy. It's like, it's got to be I think it has to be something with our scouting team. And I'm not trying to, defend Brands from everything. He deserves some blame, but surely something has to be wrong with our scouting team. And hopefully, people are starting to realise that in the club now. And then, come out. Monk says here, does the scout team not answer to Brands? But if the scouting team's not bringing players to a high enough squad, or they're not doing their job properly, there's not much Brands can do, is there really? It's like, it's difficult because in the end, I think it's not just Brands, it's the entire scouting department at Everton. It's just like, we need an entire reshape of the scouting system from top to bottom. That might start with Brands being replaced. That might just be we need new scouts. But in the end, I think we just need an entire new scouting system at Everton, because I think that's the problem. From top to bottom, we might just need an entire new thing, no matter how much it costs, to be honest.
Mike?
I mean, on Marcel Brands, I think the issue at the club potentially, that this is only my guess, is that there's whoever you bring in as director of football, whether it's Marcel Brands or anyone else, if you've got too many people interfering in that person's job, that's the problem. Not so much the individual who's asked to be director of football. So if you're going to have that model in place, then have that model in place and utilise that model. Don't say you've got a director of football and then have 2, 3, 4 people dealing with transfers, if you see what I mean. There's too many voices, I think, within the Everton boardroom when it comes down to transfers. And that's what potentially the issue is. Now, Marcel Brands, for all we know, he could be out of his depth. He's come from the Dutch league and done a really good job. Had a fantastic reputation there. Maybe it's a bit more difficult in the Premier League for him. We don't know. That's just me guessing. But I think maybe the club have got to look at it and look at what system they've got in place and sort themselves out. Whether the board take a total step back. A lot of people are saying that. I think Man City, they've got the board, but then they've also got experts within the field who deal with transfers as well. So the board don't even get involved in the transfers. They trust people to do their job and bring in the right players. And that's what we need to be doing.
Same at Liverpool, Michael Edwards, yeah.
Exactly. And that's exactly how it should be, And if we're not getting that right, then we're failing. That director of football, whether it's Marcel Brands or anyone else, Steve Ross, whoever it might be, and that's the biggest concern. And it was quite clear that there's some transfers are led by Marcel Brands, some transfers have been led by the manager at the time, and I think you've just got to operate one system and trust that system and trust the people in place to operate that system. If he's not good enough, then you deal with that and you get someone else in. It's that simple. But you've got to make sure that he's judged on basically solely being director of football and doing the job he's paid for, and not having other people interfere in what he's doing before you then say he's not good enough, he needs to go. That's my opinion. And I think sometimes it's too easy when you see on social media people slagging him off and not doing this and not doing that. A lot has gone on in the last 4 or 5 years or so that have got us to this particular point. And, any one man's not a miracle worker. And that we are where we are because of past mistakes. And I think, he said when he came in, it's going to take quite a number of years and windows to sort things out. We're just let the likes of Yannick Bolasie go in this summer and, Besic and people like that. Absolute farce that these players are still getting paid by the club. But here's what it is. Hopefully, if he's still around next summer, he gets a chance to rectify things. And if he's not good enough and he's not up to the job, then you replace him. But let's judge him on operating or doing his job in the right system and not in a system where there's too many voices.
Is there an argument, though, that if that's the case where too many people are interfering and not letting them have the final say on things, and if that's the way things have been for a couple of years now, is there not an argument that he needs to turn around and say, look, it has to be this way, or I can't be here because you're not letting me do my job? Because we get on a lot of other people for being at the club and just being happy to sit around and take a wage. Is there not an argument that if he's basically just going to be happy to be a yes man and take his wage and get undermined half the time, that he's no better than the other people at the club who are just happy to be at the furniture and not really bothered about whether things go forward or not?
Potentially, I mean, it's a bit different, I think, than playing staff. I mean, obviously he's on the board as well, isn't he? Which we all know about. He's being appointed to the board.
Which I don't understand personally. I don't get why he is on the board.
Why
would he be on the board?
It makes him immovable.
It makes him
a bit immovable.
That's why would he be immovable though? Like, I don't think he's had the success. The club hasn't had the success whilst he's been here. That means he should be immovable.
I just think it's because he gets along with Moshiri, isn't it?
Which makes me believe that if he's getting along with Moshiri, then he's clearly happy to work under Moshiri's system of, no, I'll dip in and I'll get you this player, and if I tell you to sign this player, you've got to sign him. And
I mean, there's a thing is that it's not even, there's a way. Like, it's not even that difficult for like that to still work. 1 second. In a context, it literally could just be Moshiri says this player, Brands goes out, gets someone to scout this player, brings Moshiri back and goes, here's the reasons we shouldn't sign him, there. And in the end, maybe Brands is a bit too comfortable, but in the end, we don't know that because we don't have a deep look into the club. I think it's exactly what Mike said. It is exactly what Mike said is the problem, is if you've got so many voices in your ear, in the end, I don't think Brands going to turn around to the owner and say, listen, mate, it's not your job to tell me what to do, because it is. He's the owner. And in the end, we might not like that, but he might, for all we know, we don't know. And I think that's the big problem. If Brands is just being a yes man and going, yes, but he might have said, listen, but why? Why should we bring this player in? It shouldn't work, but it's just...
Maybe, but if an owner sticks his oar into the first team affairs, managers a lot of the time will turn around and say, I can't be working in this environment, won't they? So I think at one point you either have to just accept that if you're happy to just work with an owner who is very, very hands-on like that, then I don't think you should be escaping the criticism when the decisions that owner's making basically impacts the team for the negative because you're happy to go along with it.
No, the criticism's well deserved, but I think the problem is it's the people that say, everything is Marcel Brands' fault. And I'm not saying you're saying that, but we both know that if all four of us check Twitter right now, we search in Brands, it'll take us 5 seconds to find someone doing it.
It's why I mentioned him. I did have a quick sneaky look on Twitter.
I think you're absolutely right, but I also personally don't like it whenever something goes with this deal that doesn't work out and it's a bad one, Marcel Brands a lot of times seems to escape any criticism for it, like the Iwobi one, apparently. And you were talking about St. Tosin. I mean, they're the rumours going round that it was Mashiri who kind of spearheaded those deals. We don't know that for a fact. I mean, I know Tosin was before Brands' time, but we don't know that for Iwobi wasn't a Marcel Brands idea. We don't know that Delph wasn't all down to Marcel Brands. We just don't know. It's too clouded, isn't it? So
but we also don't know that Mashiri's gone, sign Iwobi. I want Iwobi.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't know, but it seems like a lot of people pick and choose where, right, I'm happy to give Marcel Brands all the credit for this one, but if this deal over here, which is a really bad one, no, that was nothing to do with Marcel Brands. That was Iwobi or that was Kenwright or...
Do you know what I'd love the club to do? Have any of you seen the video of the Aston Villa director of football after Jack Grealish left?
Yeah.
Just sit Brands down in front of a camera and have him explain the plan.
I think that's a genuine criticism, not just at Brands, but at the club. I think they're no way near communicative enough with the fans. I mean, I can't remember the last time Marcel Brands... I don't think he's ever done a sit-down interview with the English media since he arrived. Whenever he does an interview, it always just seems to be with the Dutch media. I can't remember the last time. He did one when he first arrived. He did an interview with the Everton fan channel, but I can't remember the last time he sat down and talked directly to Evertonians, unless it was at one of these AGM events where he's got to be there because they're the shareholders. He's got to speak to them.
I think, for example, even if it's just next season, it goes, oh, how comes we didn't, for example, let's say we signed Max Aarons. Why'd you wait so long to sign a right back? We wanted Denzel Dumfries, couldn't get him. Our next choice was Max Aarons. Norwich said, if he goes down, we'll sell him to you. But it's the club's not transparent. And I don't expect the club to be an open door and tell us everything. But you could even make it clear what, I think we have to at this point, make it clear what the agenda is for the club. Because I think the club is so clouded and so that just a sit down in front of the camera and go, right, hi Everton fans, we're trying to do this, this and this. I understand he doesn't have to explain who we're signing, what position. No, our goal is to sign young players to develop or something like that. Just a basic thing. Then go on.
Clarify who does what. Do you know what I mean? I would turn around and say, right, this is this person's job. He looks at this. He handles this. This person over here handles this. These two people come together to discuss something when we reach this stage of a negotiation. There's just no clarity at all. And I think until we get clarity, then no one should be above criticism and no one should be below praise.
Yeah, it's a big problem, isn't it? And I think it could even be Everton don't want to do the footballer approach because Liverpool do it. And it really wouldn't surprise me if the club's that stubborn to do that. Well, Liverpool do it, so we don't want to do it.
Well, we know for a fact Benitez didn't want... Kenwright didn't want Benitez purely because he was the Liverpool manager, because Paul Joyce was putting articles out saying how the Everton hierarchy, certain members of it, were against Benitez coming. And we know Paul Joyce gets his information from the Kenwright side of the board. So it wouldn't surprise me if there is that petty-mindedness at the very top of the club.
Yeah, it's such a difficult situation because it's like we're saying we need clarity and we don't have it, so we're having to assume. And, if, for example, if Brands comes out and says we were really badly hindered by FFP, like we can't show the exact numbers, but we wanted to sign Denzel Dumfries, we didn't have the money. We wanted to sign this player, we didn't have the money. It's not, but I understand. Even Mashiri could come out and say it.
It would make everyone feel better, as you're saying. We know for a fact this was the situation, but when we're hearing stories that we're throwing 30 million around for Diaz from Porto, yet we're offering 5 million for that Rangers kid who was in a position that was more important, that we'd strengthen. It leaves everyone just confused. And that's what I'm saying. We need clarity. We need people to come out and say, right, this is what the situation was. This is what this person was doing all summer. This is what this person was doing. This is what they tried to do. This is what they weren't able to do. And this is the reason why. It's so confusing.
I just think, I think every Everton fan has got a different perception of what's happening. And that is a serious problem.
Yeah, exactly.
I just think it's genuinely confusing. Like trying to think, because in the end, I don't think the owner should be going. For example, I don't think the owner should be watching Monaco versus Besiktas if this example is true and saying we should sign that kid because he had a good game. No offense to Mashiri, but you're not a football person. You're not a football mind. It shouldn't be you. I understand. Listen, it's your club, and in the end, if you want to do that, then you can. But if you also want what's best for the club, You shouldn't. This isn't a hashtag Mashiri out because anyone who says that is off their head. He's just funded a new stadium. Look at how much money he's. You're embarrassing the fan base if you say that, and I'm being completely genuine when I say that. You are embarrassing the fan base because it's like someone buying you a Ferrari and then you complaining because they burnt your food. You know what I mean? It's.
Where do you get these analogies from, lad? Surely it'd be like you buying a Ferrari and it being the colour you don't like.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I don't. Do you really think? Listen, I chose to support Everton. Do you really think that, like in my head, anything makes sense? It doesn't. Everything's jumbled at this point. Everything is jumbled.
I will admit, I do think the communication could be a bit better. I saw one person, I will die on this hill that this is what we should be doing, but we're not. We should have a director of football who identifies a style of play, and we sign players round it instead of signing who managers want. Sign players that suit a style and hire managers that play that style. So then, even if you move on and the manager moves on, you just hire another manager who plays a similar style. So like Liverpool, when Klopp goes, we'll probably get someone who plays that Jurgen pressing system because they have the players to suit that. When Guardiola leaves, I'm sure they're going to go for somebody who plays relentless, short passing, quick moving football. And I really believe that's the way, but at us, we seem to buy players for managers. And then, like we said before about this transitioning, we've been transitioning for 5 years because every time there's a new manager, they go, oh, but it's not his players. But they never will be because we change it. The other one is we need to stick with a man.
There's other clubs that change managers that don't have to necessarily have a transition season afterwards because, as you said, there's a continuity plan, isn't there? And we haven't got that at all.
It's basically, to put it nicely, it's called something called common sense, something this club doesn't have. It's like, I'm sorry, right? I know if, like, I do think we're not football brains, and I think if we got put in that job, we'd look and go, okay, it kind of makes sense now. But at the same time, there's also a lot of things that it's just blatant common sense.
It's common sense to want to give the supporters a bit of clarity so they understand what's going on. And as we said, when fans are confused, fans can't be blamed for just overreacting and having a bit of a mood around the club. Do you know what I mean? Because what else are we supposed to think? The club are not giving us any answers. The club are not trying to steer us in the right direction. Even if they can't come out and outright say, this is the situation with the FFP, this is the player who we wanted, and this is how much money we paid. I can understand you not want to put everything out in the open. You've got to keep some things in the boardroom, but you've got to be able to have fans understand what it is you're doing and why you're doing it and who's doing what.
It's just, we've got to hope and pray that this is what we do when we move stadiums, that we've got Rafa now to stabilise everything, and then because I think Rafa's 3 years max, to be honest with you.
See how it goes in Park, I reckon.
I think he might make it to Branley-Moore, and then even if it's Duncan Ferguson to take over, but it's just if it's counter-attacking football, if it's none of us are asking to play like Barcelona. I don't
think it suits us. I don't think it gets our fans up for it.
We can play quick counter-attacking football, and you can win the league with that. Look at Leicester. You can win the league playing counter-attacking football if you do it well, if you have the players to fit the system. And it's literally exactly what you said, Connor. Like, I can't explain it any better because you explained it perfectly of what to do. There's people in positions that do specific things, and is it just Everton don't want to pay the extra wages to do it? Probably. Do we give Marcel Brands a team of people who know what they're talking about? Because it really won't surprise me if the club have hired businessmen to talk to Marcel Brands about football, and Marcel Brands is looking to his left and his right and going, "What are these idiots doing here?"
If that's the case, though, that goes back to what I said earlier on. If you're getting put in a position where you can't do your job to the best of your ability, and you're happy to just go along with that, then are you above the criticism that you're just a yes man taking a wage?
Yeah, but we might have said something, but this is the problem. We won't know. Like, I pray that Everton do something, that just they sit down and go, this is what happened this transfer window, because we can tell you're all disappointed, but they won't. All the other well-run clubs provide some form of clarity. It's not to the level of Aston Villa saying, yeah, we just sold our superstar. This is why. And it's just, look what Villa did when they sold Grealish, for an example. They said, we identified these things that he does best, and we replaced each thing with a specific player who does that really well. It's the dribbling, Leon Bailey, the getting involved with the goals, Danny Ings, and then I'm guessing the creativity side of it's Emi Buendia. There you go. So it's years of mistakes have caught up to us. It's just that simple. Years of mistakes have caught up, and now the fan base are just trying to wrap their heads around it and trying to think of a solution at the point.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, do you have any thoughts on it? On any of the last 10 minutes?
I don't know. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? And we can talk about communication, and we'd all like more and more information from the club. I think sometimes we do let ourselves down on certain points, but there's also certain things that the club can't say and they're never going to say, and we're never going to be privy to it. And we sit here every single week and give our opinion and our views on things, and we try and think, okay, what's happening behind the scenes, and let's get it right. We don't really know. We hear things from people, and who might be in the know, and people that we trust, and little snippets here and there. But we're guessing a lot of the time, aren't we? We've all got our own thoughts, and it's so difficult because nowadays everyone needs to know or wants to know about the insides of a duck's backside, basically, when it comes to football, and that goes for the finances, people's contacts, the tactical side of things, who does what. And back 20, 25 years ago, we couldn't care less. We go and watch our team on a Saturday, and that'll be that. I think we're in an age now where people do want to know more and more, because that's the way that things have evolved. And is that for the better? I just don't know. I think maybe sometimes we feel we should know more than we're really entitled to. That's my opinion, and I don't know whether that's the right way to go about things. But the club aren't going to come out and say, listen, this is our current financial situation, this is where we are. We all know that, because it's all over the internet. We all know how close to the line we are when it comes to financial fair play or the Premier League rules, or whatever way you want to dress things up. And we all know that if we went, listen, forget that. Look what happened with the Super League teams. You got a little slap on the wrist, a really, really small fine. They'll go and spend whatever we want to go and spend, and just take a chance. What are you going to do? We all know that Everton Football Club would be made an example of, and we'd lose points, and that's how it would go. So it's just not, it's not worthwhile doing that either. We are where we are. We've all said it. We've made past mistakes. We've got to live with it. We'll still be there over weekend supporting the team. We'll still be there, hoping the manager does well, and we can bring some success before we leave Goodison Park. We've got a great new stadium on the waterfront on the horizon. Work has started there. The future, generally is bright for the club, but we've got to just take, it might be a bitter pill. We've got to just take that bitter pill for the time being. We've had not a poor transfer window, but a quiet transfer window where we're a little bit short in certain positions. But it's what it is. Let's move forward, and let's try and have a decent season. Let's not try and overanalyze things. The information's out there if you want to go and have a look at it. But at the end of the day, we're Everton, and we'll get on with it. Let's just move forward.
And hopefully that's the case. If we move forward, maybe the lack of this is the thing I'm going to hold on to. Maybe the lack of signings, the lack of excitement this window, expectations, I'm going to say, are relatively low. Maybe this means we can really push on and do something that we look back on. I mean, if Rafa Benitez can get us, I think top 10 with if you look back in history, if we look back 4 years away and we said we got a top 10 this season, we showed someone this transfer window, I think that would look on him very, very favourably, and would only go as a massive compliment to him, just because this window hasn't been the best. But we've said he can work with little things. So I think we're going to leave this there, though, just because it is kicking on late. And I don't know about you boys, but it's time for my bed. Thank you for joining again, though, Cal and Paul. And thank you, Mike, for joining. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
No problem.
Don't forget, guys, you can like the stream. Really appreciate it if you do. Subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more content coming out. We'll probably have a Rondon reaction video and some other stuff about the window. And most importantly, stay safe, everyone.